In this ninja world, I'm the one in charge now. Uzumaki Naraku. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 226. That's enough. Kakashi. Outside Kaguya village, two figures, one black and one blue, appeared here. For two people who both mastered the time and space ninjutsu, the battle between them was very dynamic. The two of them chased each other and arrived here in a short time. At this time, both of them had suffered a huge loss after the battle. Kakashi's body was flashing with blue light, but it was obvious that the violent thunder attribute chakra was no longer as powerful as before. Obito, who was standing opposite him, was also feeling uncomfortable at this time. You could see that the black robe on his body was in pieces, and even the tiger striped mask on his face had a few cracks, and the originally strong aura on his body had weakened a bit. Obito raised his head and looked at Kakashi with his scarlet right eye. It is no exaggeration to say that he had exhausted all his cards at this time, but even so, he still did not defeat Kakashi. However, with his complete divine power, he can also be invincible. Yes, it was the complete divine power. At this time, you could see that where the orange mask on Obito's head was broken, there was a spot facing his left eye, where a scarlet light flashed. Yes, Obito's left eye that had disappeared, has now grown back. With the help of a large number of first generation cells, Obito Senru achieved this in one step. In fact, Obito never thought that his left eye could grow back at first. He just wanted to fuse his body with the first generation cells and increase his strength. But what didn't he expect? After he completely controlled the first generation cells in his body, his originally empty left eye began to undergo subtle changes. Then Obito finally succeeded in growing his left eye again. After spending a large amount of first generation cells, a newly grown left eye, like the left eye on Kakashi's body, has the ability to transfer objects remotely. Obito relied on the ability of the twin gods to persist in Kakashi's hands for so long. But equally, if Kakashi didn't have his left eye on him, he would have defeated him long ago. So at this time, the two seemed evenly matched. Obito couldn't kill Kakashi, and Kakashi couldn't kill him either. Who are you? At this moment, Kakashi's slightly heavy tone sounded on the field. Kakashi's eyes were complicated at this moment. Counting this time today, he had already had many confrontations with Obito. Almost every time he saw Obito, he felt a strong sense of familiarity in his heart. Especially this time, the time and space ninjutsu used by the opponent is very similar to the divine power of his left eye, and can even be said to be the exact same ability. This discovery magnified Kakashi's suspicion several times. A name flashed in his mind. Haha, does it matter who I am, Kakashi? Just continue to live in pain. A sneer came from the masked mouth. When we meet again next time, we must make a break, Kakashi, Obito secretly thought in his heart, and then the space in front of him trembled slightly, and a space vortex appeared on him. Then Obito's figure flickered slightly, and he was ready to leave. Now that the fourth Mizukage is dead, Kaguya village has lost its value to Obito, so he is ready to give up here. Divine power. But at this moment, a powerful life force burst out from Kakashi standing in front of him, and a line of blood and tears flowed from his left eye. Then Obito's body, which was about to become illusory and visible to the naked eye, stopped for a moment. HMPH, you are still as innocent as expected, Kakashi, Obito sneered in his heart, and then his left eye pupil power burst out, and the next moment, the same pupil power as Kakashi's appeared. Buzz. Under the collision of the two pupil powers, the surrounding space instantly became extremely unstable, fluctuating like a tide. At this time, Kakashi only felt a sharp pain coming from his left eye. He himself did not have the blood of the Uchiha clan, and his ability to barely use the main Gekkai Sharingan was already the limit. And now it was a battle of eye power with Obito, who had the same ability. It was obvious that he was not Obito's opponent, and his eye power was suppressed by Obito almost instantly. Obito's body became unreal again. Stab it. But at this moment, a blue sword light appeared in Obito's sight. It was Kakashi. He was holding the sword in both hands, and swung the sword tremblingly. It's useless to do all this. Kakashi, Obito thought to himself, and then his body became illusory to the naked eye, and the deformation was completed. Then the thunder and lightning sword light rushed to Obito's eyes, and the next moment it penetrated directly into his head. But at this moment, Kakashi once again exuded a powerful eye power, and his divine power was activated again. I saw that the originally complete sword light was instantly disconnected from the middle, and then half of the sword light became distorted. The next moment, half of the sword light disappeared instantly, and was transferred to the Kamu space by Kakashi. Obito's face changed slightly when he noticed the change in the sword's light. The sword's light appeared in reality and the Kamu space at the same time. He could not avoid it, no matter what point. After a slight hesitation, the eye power burst out from his body, and then you could see that his originally illusory body became more solid. Then Obito turned slightly sideways and avoided the attack of half of the sword light. Hey! But at this moment, a sound broke through the air, and then Obito felt a silver light appear in front of his eyes. It was Kakashi who took action, and he was standing next to Obito holding a silver short blade. Kakashi slashed forward with his short blade, and a silver blade instantly appeared on Obito's face. Click, click. The sword light fell on the orange mask, instantly breaking it into two halves. Boom, boom. The mask shattered in half, fell to the ground. Obito. At this time, Kakashi's eyes were complicated, and he murmured in his mouth, as if he couldn't believe that the person in front of him who was supposed to be dead actually appeared again. Although Obito's appearance had changed drastically at this time, and the right half of his face was full of wrinkles, Kakashi still recognized him at a glance. In front of him was his former partner, Uchiha Obito. Obito, why don't you go back to the village, since you are still alive? You don't know that we. Suddenly, Kakashi roared excitedly. At this time, his body was trembling, and mist seemed to appear in his eyes. That's enough, Kakashi. Uchiha Obito is dead, and now I'm Uchiha Madara. At this moment, Obito's hoarse voice sounded. At this time, he raised his hand and revealed a pair of scarlet eyes without any emotion. After looking at Obito's cold eyes, Kakashi trembled slightly. Even now, he still couldn't believe that the masked man in front of him was his former partner. Chapter 227 White Bone Snake. The Kingdom of Wind, a desolate location outside Sand-Hidden Village Point in the originally deserted environment. A figure appeared at this time. It was a young man with long white hair, 2 dots of red cinnabar between his eyebrows, and 2 streaks of red eyeshadow under his narrow pupils. Kimimaro, you're here. At this moment, a voice of joy sounded, and then the ground trembled, and a boy with orange hair walked out of the ground. His childish-looking face proved that he was still young. The boy is Jugo, and this is Orochimaru's abandoned research laboratory. In the years since Orochimaru left with Kimimaro, Jugo has been living here. Jugo was extremely familiar with Kimimaro's aura, and he had already sensed his aura when he first appeared. But when he got close to Kimimaro, Jugo instantly noticed something unusual. The Kimimaro in front of him had an expressionless face, and there was an evil aura between his brows. Although Kimimaro in the past also didn't like to talk and often had a straight face, he was kind at heart at that time. It is because of Kimimaro's kindness that Jugo regards him as his only friend, and Kimimaro is also his spiritual support. But at this time, Jugo couldn't feel the kindness in Kimimaro. The unacceptable thought deep in his heart appeared in Jugo's mind. Kimimaro, have you already? Jugo. At this moment, Kimimaro, who was standing in front of Jugo, spoke. What happened to Xiang Lion and the child? There was a cold aura in the hoarse voice. Hearing this voice, Zango's expression changed, and then his expression became depressed. Then he lowered his head and said, they are all fine, and they are living in this research room like me, Master. Orochimaru. Yes. At this time, Jugo could already see that the person in front of him was no longer Kimimaro, but Orochimaru. At this time, Orochimaru had successfully used Fuso reincarnation and occupied Kimimaro's body. Yeah. Kimimaro. No, it should be said to be Orochimaru. He stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, then walked towards the laboratory below. Originally, he just wanted to see Jugo and the others, and take them all to another place. However, after arriving here, Orochimaru changed his mind, and decided to continue his research here. Ugh. Just as Orochimaru entered the laboratory, a beast-like roar came from behind him. As expected, Yuri still so irritable. Jugo, Orochimaru murmured softly. Behind him, one could see that Django, who was still in human form, had completely changed his appearance. His body was bent, his skin had turned dark yellow, and his fingers were as sharp as enamel claws. Zanwu entered a state of rage. Haha. After a roar, Jugo's legs were slightly bent, and then he jumped up and rushed towards Orochimaru in front of him. After going berserk, Jugo's speed and strength will be increased several times. In just an instant, he appeared behind Orochimaru, and his claw-like hands fell directly on his body. But at this time, Orochimaru seemed not to notice his attack, and he continued to walk downwards. Boom. At this moment, there was a violent noise, and after the ground trembled for a while, a giant white python emerged from the ground and blocked Zanwu's front. What? Zango, who had lost his mind, didn't care about what was in front of him. He just tore apart any creature he could see. Boom. Jugo's body collided with the huge white snake, and a loud noise instantly sounded on the field. If Django was awake at this time, he would definitely be shocked when he saw the scene in front of him, because there was more than one real snake standing in front of him at this time. But a bone snake. The white snake in front of me has no flesh and blood, and its whole body is made up of white skeletons. It looks very eye-catching. Haha. Let me see if your strength has increased. Jugo, Orochimaru let out a sneer, and then disappeared here, leaving only the white bone snake and Jugo fighting. One person and one snake are constantly colliding with each other. From here, it can be seen that the body of the white bone snake is extremely hard. You must know that in this state, Django's whole body is wrapped in natural energy. Even a casual blow is very powerful. But even so, the white bone snake can still easily block his attack, which is enough to show how hard the white bone snake's body is. Orochimaru, who successfully reincarnated into Kimimaro, has completely mastered the Kaguya clan's blood inheritance limit, the corpse vein. By mastering the bone veins, he can easily control his own bone bud cells and osteoclasts, and can also control the calcium concentration. To form bones, the bones produced by corpse veins are stronger than steel. The white bone snake is the product of Orochimaru using the bones in his own body. While the white bone snake was fighting with Jugo, Orochimaru had already gone underground and came to the laboratory. Master Orochimaru. A childish female voice sounded in the laboratory. Orochimaru looked down and saw a little girl with red hair and a pair of round-rimmed glasses appearing in his sight. Uzumaki Naraku, long time no see. Looking at the red-haired little girl in front of him, the corners of Orochimaru's mouth raised slightly, revealing a smile. After hearing this familiar voice, Kosoba's young body trembled slightly, and then she raised her head and looked at Orochimaru, who had Kimimaro's face in front of her. For the Uzumaki clan, who are born with strong senses, when Jugo met Orochimaru, she sensed Orochimaru's aura. Unlike Jugo, she knew from the beginning that the person in front of her was Orochimaru and not Kimimaro. She would never forget that cold aura point. After trembling slightly for 2 times, Xiangling summoned up the courage to make a surprising move. She raised her right hand and handed it to Orochimaru. It seemed that she wanted Orochimaru to take her hand. Same point, this scene makes people look a little unbelievable. Who is Orochimaru? He is cruel and murderous. He is a being who regards human life as nothing. If an ordinary child saw Orochimaru, he might not be able to walk. However, if you look at it from Kosova's perspective, you may be able to understand this scene. Orochimaru has the same meaning to her, and it can even be said that Orochimaru is her savior. No matter what the future holds, Xiangling is now both afraid and affectionate towards Orochimaru. Chapter 228. Let me borrow something. In the sand-hidden village, a white-haired boy appeared here, and the figure was none other than Orochimaru. After staying in the laboratory for 2 days, he left for Sunagakure village. Orochimaru walked on the streets of Sunagakure village. Compared to the prosperous scene in Konoha village, Sunagakure village seems a little barren in comparison. Especially in Sunagakure village at this stage, life was not easy for them. After losing the 4th Kazakage, Although the existence of a powerful ally like Konoha village deterred some unscrupulous element with ideas, but everyone in Tsunagakure village knows that there is no cage level expert in Tsunagakure village today, and they are gradually losing their reputation as one of the 5 great ninja villages, so the current life of the villagers of Tsunagakure village is not easy, but these have nothing to do with Orochimaru. He just came here to find out some information. Inside the Kazekage building, Chiyo, whose face was full of grooves, was dealing with the documents on the table with a tired expression. She had been accustomed to a leisurely life for many years, and took the position of acting as Kazekage's agent as soon as she came up. It must be said that this was a good thing for her who was already old. A very laborious task, but fortunately, she also has Ebizo to assist her, otherwise it would be difficult for Chiyo to complete such a heavy task alone. Sister, there is news from Kirigakure village that the 4th Mizukage died unexpectedly. Now they have elected a new Mizukage, and it seems that he will take over today. On the side, a thin old man wearing white clothes held a scroll in his hand and reported information to Chiyo. He is Ebizo, Chiyo's younger brother and another elder of Tsunagakure village. By the way, according to reliable sources, Konoha's silver fang shines, and Kakashi Hatake will represent Konoha in the succession ceremony of the 5th Mizukage. It seems that Kirigakure village will also form an alliance with Kizuki village. Ebizo's voice sounded again point after saying this. Ebizo's eyes were complicated. He was already in his 40s, and was also very sensitive to some things. He had already noticed something unusual. Chiyo's eyes on the other side trembled slightly, and a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. First, it targeted Tsunagakure village, and now it has intervened in the affairs of Kirigakure village. It seems that the ninja world will once again set off a storm. Tsunade, Senju, I hope you can put an end to this once and for all. Chiyo secretly thought in her heart that Chiyo knew very well about Konoha village or Tsunade's plot. The last time she negotiated with Tsunade, the other party also told her what she was thinking. In fact, when Chiyo was young, she had thought about the same thing as Tsunade, but in the end she gave up. Some things cannot be changed by humans after all. However, Tsunade was lucky compared to her. She was born in the powerful Konoha village, and received the most powerful surname in the ninja world, Senju. I hope you can succeed. A feeling of loneliness grew in Chiyo's heart. She knew very well that no matter what changes happened in the ninja world in the future, they had nothing to do with the current Tsunagakure village. Tsunagakure village has ended its qualification to compete for the king ahead of schedule. If they are lucky, or if Tsunade can really do what she says, their life in Tsunagakure village may improve in the future. But if Tsunade fails to do it, or if she fails, then Tsunagakure village can only accept the status quo, because they themselves have lost the power to change the status quo. After Ebizo reported the matter to Chiyo, he got up and left. There were still many matters waiting for him to deal with in Tsunagakure village. Just after Ebizo left here, Chiyo continued to lower his head and deal with the documents on the table. But at some point, a young figure appeared in her sight. It was a handsome young man with long white hair and 2 red dots on his forehead. Who are you? Looking at the young man in front of her, Chiyo's heart went off, and her body tensed up instantly. She didn't realize when the man in front of her appeared here. Chiyo looked at the other party with vigilant eyes, and she felt a very cold aura. Haha, don't be nervous, Elder Chiyo. I'm just here to borrow something from you. A hoarse voice came from the young man's mouth. The white-haired boy was Orochimaru. He stretched out his tongue and licked his lips. When he looked at Chiyo, his narrow eyes emitted a ray of light. Borrowing something, Chiyo tried hard to suppress the fear in her heart, and a majestic look appeared on her wrinkled face. She snorted coldly, blue chakra surged around her body, and her cold eyes looked directly at Orochimaru in front of her. Your teacher never taught you that you must register your number before borrowing something, Chiyo said in a cold tone. In fact, when she said these words, she was already showing weakness. Although Chiyo's momentum was exploding at this moment, she knew very well that she was no match for the young man in front of her in this room, and even in the entire Kazekage building. She had set up various mechanisms in advance, and chakra lines were deployed in many places. She could sense it immediately whenever someone appeared. And there were 2 Jonin guarding the Kazekage's office. But even so, the man in front of him broke in easily, so Chiyo was very aware of the gap in strength between the two. If she were alone, Chiyo would definitely risk her life to fight him to the end, but now she is responsible for the future of the entire Sunagakure village, and there are some things she neither dares nor can do anymore. Haha, Elder Chiyo is really joking, Orochimaru, standing opposite her, sneered. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At this moment, the sound of snakes spitting messages sounded on the field. Chiyo turned his head and looked aside when he heard the sound. He saw that the entire room was filled with snakes of all sizes. These snakes were small in size, only as thick as a wrist. At this time, they were all squirming, looking at Chiyo with their cold snake eyes. After looking at the large number of snakes, a name flashed in her mind. One of the three ninjas, Lord Leng, Orochimaru. Chiyo looked up at Orochimaru beside him, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Although Chiyo, who is proficient in puppetry, is not very strong, she is very good at disguise and disguise. She can tell at a glance that the white-haired boy in front of her is indeed a young man, not a transfiguration or disguise point, but this was what surprised her. The name of the Sannin of Konoha had already become famous in the ninja world during the Second Ninja War at that time. The boy in front of me, who was only a teenager, must not have been born yet. Chapter 229 Unlucky Danzo. Chiyo looked at the white-haired boy in front of her with a solemn expression. She couldn't believe that the boy was Orochimaru, one of the three ninjas, inside Kirigakure village. At this time, a week has passed since the accidental death of the fourth Mizukage, and today, Kirigakure village will usher in a new leader, Terumi Mei, who will succeed the fifth Mizukage point located in a square in the center of Kirigakure village. The square was already surrounded by people. King, wearing a black eye patch, stood at the front. At this time, he raised his head and set his sights on the center of the square. On someone wearing a white robe point with long brown hair and a hat with the word water printed on it. It was Terumi Mei, with a bright smile on her face at this time. After years of hard work, she finally achieved this step. A look of perseverance appeared on Terumi Mei's face. She secretly vowed in her heart that she must change the current situation of Kirigakure village, so that all the people of the Water Kingdom can live a peaceful life. For this goal, she is willing to do anything. I declare that Mei Terumi will succeed the Mizukage and become the fifth Mizukage of Kirigakure village. After, an old man with grey hair and a face full of grooves announced loudly, Terumi Mei became the fifth generation Mizukage of Kirigakure village. Oh, you are still too young. Naraku's voice came from a house not far away. Let's go, Brother K. We've finished the business. Why don't you send me back quickly? Naraku, who had his eyes closed, said to Kakashi beside him. It is good. In response, Kakashi nodded slightly, put his head on Naraku's shoulder, and activated the Flying Thunder God. Then he and Naraku's figures disappeared at the same time, but only for a moment. Kakashi's figure appeared here. Although Kakashi did not want to stay in Kirigakure village, Tsunade promised Terumi Mei to let him stay in Kirigakure village for a period of time in order for Kirigakure village to successfully form an alliance with Konoha. She would not let him stay until the situation in Kirigakure village stabilized. Return to the village point. Kakashi felt very helpless about this, but in line with the principle of taking things as they come, he still chose to accept this order. He temporarily stayed in Kirigakure village as an envoy of Konoha village, the home of the Senju clan. Naraku, who was sent back by Kakashi, walked to a secret room in the clan with a scroll in his hand. Then he threw out the scroll in his hand, and with a bang, the scroll turned into a burst of white smoke. When the smoke dissipated, a figure wrapped in white bandages appeared in the secret room. You can see that the white bandage is covered with black swirling spells. Haha, Elder Danzo, I have to thank you for staying here for a while. Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly, revealing a smile. That's right, the person sealed by the white bandage at this time is Danzo, who was reincarnated by Orochimaru's dirty soil. In Naraku's opinion, Kakashi and Itachi's trip to Kirigakure was quite successful. The fourth Mizukage killed by Itachi undoubtedly weakened the strength of Obito's side, and the alliance between Konoha and Kirigakure also gave Konoha a plan to take the next step. But compared to these, catching Danzo was an unexpected surprise. In fact, Danzo had been watching the battle nearby when Kakashi and his friends fought with Obito. Even after Obito escaped from Kirigakure, Danzo still chose to hide in Kirigakure. He might have thought that Kakashi and the others would leave Kirigakure village soon, but it was obvious that he had miscalculated, or it can be said that he is relatively unlucky. Danzo was discovered by Itachi and was easily defeated by Kakashi, but now Danzo is the reincarnation of the earth, and Kakashi and Itachi are not good at sealing techniques. So Kakashi returned to Muyi and brought Naraku over. It was just a matter of sealing the filthy earth body. This was not difficult for Naraku. He successfully sealed Danzo easily. After leaving Danzo in this secret room, Naraku turned around and left. This secret room was specially built by him. The previous Tatel Jinchuriki Yukato had the honor to live here for a while, but now it is Danzo's turn. Naraku walked out of the secret room and arrived at the training ground of the Senju clan. At this time, you can see that there are many figures training here. However, if you look carefully, you will find that these figures all look like Naraku. Exactly the same. These are his shadow clones. Let me see if you are lazy. Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly and thought to himself. Then he raised his right hand to form a seal, and he released the shadow clone technique. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, all the shadow clones in the training ground turned into a ball of white smoke with a bang. In an instant, Naraku felt a large number of insights and memories appear in his mind. Naraku raised his hand and rubbed his swollen head. Although he still felt a little headache, it was much better than before. After all the memories and perceptions were accepted, Naraku sat cross-legged on the ground, and then he closed his eyes. The next moment, a strange energy emanated from his body. This energy was similar to pupil power, but it was obviously different. This is spiritual energy. In fact, for Naraku, compared to ordinary people, his spiritual energy has always been very powerful in his two lives. This is why he dares to use shadow clones to practice. As for Naruto, he is purely a child of luck and cheating. Who can compare with him? However, even though Naraku's spiritual energy is stronger than others, it is only limited, and Naraku can also feel that as he grows older, the growth rate of his spiritual energy begins to slow down. Naraku estimated that when he reaches adulthood, his mental energy may not continue to increase. For ninjas, the amount and intensity of mental energy is a big factor that affects personal strength. First of all, chakra is the product of the combination of mental energy and physical energy. Physical energy can be enhanced through acquired exercise, but mental energy is difficult to enhance. In today's ninja world, most people's spiritual energy is acquired innately, and only a small number of people can enhance their spiritual energy through special training methods. Just like the blood inheritance limit of the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan. The pupil technique performed by the Sharingan is a type of mental energy. Normally, the mental energy of people who can open the Sharingan will be partially enhanced, and as the Sharingan is enhanced, the mental energy will also be partially enhanced. Just like Naraku himself, when he turned on the main Gekkai Sharingan, he obviously felt that his spiritual energy had increased a lot. However, the Sharingan's enhancement of mental energy is only effective for people with the blood of the Uchiha clan. Just like Kakashi, his left eye will not only not enhance his mental energy, but will even slowly consume him. Spiritual energy. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230. There is no fuel-efficient lamp. In the Thousand Hands Clan's clan, Naraku was sitting cross-legged, with a strange energy flowing around his body. At this time, he was using a special technique to enhance his spiritual energy. This method was taught to him by Hong. According to Hong, it was a secret technique passed down from generation to generation by their Yuhi clan. It is precisely because of this secret technique that can enhance spiritual energy that Kurenoi his illusion technique is so outstanding. But Naraku knew that Yuhi Kurenoi was nothing compared to her father, Yuhi Mako. There are rumors that even the Sharingan can't see through Yuhi's Jinjutsu. As for why Kurenoi easily taught him this important secret technique, Naraku believed that it was because of his charisma. but this is purely because he is overthinking. In fact, this secret technique that can enhance spiritual energy has been handed over to the Leaf Village as early as the Yuhi clan's family. There are also records about this secret technique in the Book of Ceilings. Although the Yuhi clan handed over the secret technique, few people practice it. Because some conditions must be met to practice this secret technique, most people are unable to practice it. As for Naraku, because he has a whirlpool, dual Uchiha bloodlines, and a special constitution, this secret technique is not too difficult for him. With Kunoa's help, it didn't take him long to master it. Occult point. Although he had not practiced for long, Naraku could clearly feel that his spiritual energy had increased. After the spiritual energy was enhanced, the side effects of using shadow clones to practice were also alleviated. Although Naraku still had headaches occasionally, it was much better than before. Naraku then sat cross-legged until dark, practicing the secret technique of enhancing spiritual energy. Uncle, dinner is ready. It wasn't until Naruto's shouts rang out not far away that Naraku ended his training, and then he got up and left here. After having dinner with Kushina, Haku, and Naruto, Naraku returned directly to his room. Shadow clone technique. When Naraku returned to the room, he formed a seal with one hand and let out a low drink. Boom, boom. Two white clouds of smoke appeared, and then two shadow clones appeared in the room. Without hesitation, the two shadow clones nodded to each other in a tacit understanding after they appeared, and then stood in the corner of the room in a flash. Then a red pattern appeared on their faces, and then a strong breath of life came from them. The two shadow clones entered the immortal mode at the same time, while Naraku was lying on the bed, and continued to practice the secret technique that can enhance spiritual energy. At this time, a sense of urgency arose in his heart. Although Kakashi gained a lot from this trip to Kirigakure, he also unveiled the mask. Kakashi has learned the true identity of the masked man, Uchiha Obito. In fact, if it was just this, Naraku wouldn't be surprised, because he knew Obito's identity from the beginning. What really surprised Naraku was Obito's regrown left eye. Naraku never expected that Obito would do something he hadn't done yet, which was a bit hard for him to accept. And he knows very well that Obito's strength will skyrocket with two Mangekyou Sharingan. Even if his eyes have recovered now, he may not be Obito's opponent. The strength of the twin Kami should not be underestimated. It is not an exaggeration to say that in today's ninja world, the strength of Obito, who has a complete pair of Mangekyou Sharingan, is already ranked among the top 5 in the ninja world. Even if Obito wants to escape, even soon Nagato, who has the Samsara Eye, can't do anything to him. If Obito has a weakness, there is only one, and that is Kakashi. Kakashi, who also masters the power of God, can be said to be Obito's only weakness at this time. However, Naraku is not worried about Kakashi's safety. As long as he wants to escape, even if Nagato and Obito join forces, they will be unable to stop Kakashi. However, Naraku knew that he could not put all the burden on Kakashi. Although Kakashi was very strong now, there would be many powerful enemies in the future, and it would be difficult for him to support him alone. So Naraku must restore his eyes as soon as possible. He has wasted too much time in order to restore the Sharingan. In the Uchiha clan, Fugaku looked at the information in his hand and showed an expression of disbelief. The true identity of the masked man who calls himself Uchiha Madara is Uchiha Obito, who died in the Third Ninja War. Fugaku murmured, his tone full of shock. He is still very familiar with Uchiha Obito, because he and Shizu belong to the same lineage, and are both descendants of Uchiha Kagami. However, in Fugaku's impression, Uchiha Obito is a ninja with average talent. Not to mention Shizu, a genius like Itachi, is completely incomparable. Even compared to the average tribesman, Obito's talent can only be regarded as average. However, although Obito's talent is average, many people in the Uchiha clan and even the entire Konoha village have heard of his name. This is all because of Kakashi. Many people in Konoha know that after the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, a pair of Sharingan gave Konoha village two heroes. One was the copy ninja Kakashi, and the other was Obito Uchiha, who died in the battle. Many people know that Kakashi's Sharingan was transplanted to him by Uchiha Obito. Especially Fugaku. At that time, he was under pressure from the elders, and had stepped forward to put pressure on the third Hokage to ask Kakashi to return the Sharingan to their Uchiha clan point at that time. The third generation was hesitant about this matter. In order to calm the anger of the Uchiha clan, he even thought about giving Kakashi's left eye back. But later Minato came forward, took Kakashi to the Uchiha clan, and shocked the elders with his absolute strength, so that Kakashi could continue to have Obito's left eye. Uchiha. Obito. Take Kakashi. Now, it seems that none of your disciples, Minato, are fuel efficient. A wry smile appeared on Fugaku's face, and then he looked up at Itachi standing in front of him, and the Uchiha clan emblem behind Itachi. Fugaku's eyes gradually became complicated. Today's masked man is Uchiha Obito, who is stirring up trouble in the ninja world. Although he does not use the name of the Uchiha clan, his pair of Sharingan eyes says everything. Uchiha Obito's various behaviors will only put the Uchiha clan into greater danger. Maybe Obito pretending to be Uchiha class will be solved in the future, but who can guarantee that the next person with the name of Uchiha Obito will not appear in the future? Chapter 231 Beiju's Masterpiece. Just when Uchiha Fugaku was worried about the future of the Uchiha clan, Tsunade in the Hokage's office also learned the true identity of the masked man. In fact, Tsunade knew about this earlier than Fugaku. After Itachi returned to the village, the first thing he reported to her was about the Kirigakure village. Although Tsunade had long suspected the masked man's identity, she still didn't expect that it was Uchiha Obito disguised as him. Uchiha Obito, the fourth generation's disciple. Tsunade murmured softly, then stood up and left the Hokage's office. What? Tsunade walked out of the Hokage building and stretched her hands. With the dim moonlight, she could see a trace of fatigue on her face, but it quickly disappeared. Kakashi, Naraku, you have to grow up as soon as possible. Tsunade murmured in her heart, then raised her feet and left here. At the same time, a tall figure appeared behind her. It was Jiraiya, a hidden location outside Kirigakure village. Inside a huge mountain, Obito, who was wearing a wide black robe, was standing on a boulder with complicated eyes. At this time, you could see that a new mask had appeared on his face. The mask was still orange tiger stripes. But what is different from before is that this mask has two eye sockets, and his left and right eyes are exposed respectively. Although Obito doesn't care about his identity being exposed, if he loses the mask of Uchiha Madara, it may not be so convenient for him to do some things. Haha, I told you a long time ago that you can't keep that Kakashi guy, especially since he has your left eye. In some ways, he will be your only weakness. At this moment a sneer came the voice. Then a figure shrouded in giant pitcher plants appeared in front of Obito. You can see that there is a black and white body under the pitcher plant, which is Zetsu. Upon hearing this, Obito's eyes narrowed, and his scarlet eyes emitted an endless cold light. He stared straight at Ju in front of him, and then a hoarse voice came out from his mouth. Are you teaching me how to do things, Ju? As he spoke, a powerful aura emanated from Obito's body. This is a double Sharingan. Could it be that he really succeeded? Looking at Obito in front of him who was gaining momentum, Zetsu's expression changed slightly, and he thought to himself. He knew that Obito wanted to use first generation cells to restore his right eye. At first, he thought that this method would not work, because although the first generation cells have very powerful recovery energy, such an important organ as the eye is not so easy to restore. Can grow back. He didn't expect Obito to actually do this, and a trace of fear appeared on Zetsu's face. If Obito is just a single-eyed person, although he is very strong and has the power to dematerialize his body, he definitely knows the weakness of Obito's power, so he is not afraid of Obito. But things are different now. Obito, the twin Kamu, is undoubtedly far more powerful than him, and can even transfer him to the Kamu space at any time. Especially Heiju. A deep fear flashed in his eyes. Obito's strength could change the direction of his entire plan at this time, but then Black Zetsu stabilized, and Obito is still on the same front with him now. They all currently have the same goal, which is to realize the Eye of the Moon plan together, which is the infinite moon reading. Completing the infinite Tsukuyomi is just one step in Black Zetsu's 1000-year plan. Uchiha Obito, try your best to help me complete my plan. Heiju secretly thought in his heart. How dare I teach Madara-sama to do things, Zetsu said with a smile on his face. Oh, by the way, Nagato has gathered people and is ready to implement the plan in a year. His pupils trembled slightly when he heard this. 1 year later, he murmured softly in his mouth, then turned to look at a figure fainting on the ground. You can see that the man wearing clothes with the emblem of the Uchiha clan is Uchiha Sasuke. Looking at Sasuke who fainted, Obito's eyes slowly fell on the other person's closed eyes. At this time, he could still see 2 lines of undried blood under Sasuke's eyes. Maybe Obito had a bold idea in his mind, and then he walked straight to Sasuke's side, just as he was about to reach out and pull him up from the ground. Despair. At this moment, the sound of footsteps sounded from the entrance of the cave, and Obito turned around and saw a familiar figure. He has short brown hair and is wearing a black ninja uniform with a black mesh top underneath. Luosha. Obito frowned slightly when he saw the person coming. He was very aware of Luosha's injuries at that time. He couldn't recover in such a short time with many internal organs in his body damaged. But the next moment, when Obito's eyes fell on Luosha's face, he saw something, and he also sensed a very familiar aura on Luosha's body, which was the aura of the first generation cells. At this time, it can be seen that, although Luosha can stand and walk like a normal person, his face is cold and expressionless, and even his eyes are like a pool of stagnant water, as if he is a robot without any emotions. Your masterpiece, then. Obito turned to look at Beizetsu and said, haha, how about it? In this case, we have another shadow level strongman. Ju said with a sneer. In fact, Beiju had planted the seeds of the first generation cells in Luosha's body a long time ago, and of course he had tampered with them. Although Luosha's body has fully recovered at this time, the real Luosha is actually dead, and what controls his body now is just a white Ju clone. The Beiju clone that has mastered Luosha's body can also exert his strength, and is even stronger than Luosha himself to some extent. He didn't say anything to Beiju's proud Obito. All he saw was that his right eye trembled, and then a powerful pupil power burst out. Then the originally stable space in front of it suddenly became turbulent, and a space vortex appeared. The next moment, a thin figure appeared in the open space ahead. It was Sarutobi Yimming. Perhaps because of the presence of a tailed beast in his body and the transplantation of a large number of first generation cells. Sarutobi Yimming seemed to be in pretty good condition at this time, and the injuries caused by Kakashi on his body had almost recovered. However, Obito still saw a hint of panic in Sarutobi Ikume's eyes. He knew that Kakashi had cast a certain shadow on his psychology. Chapter 232 Reincarnated. In a hidden cave outside Kirigakure village, Obito's cold eyes fell on the fainted Uchiha Sasuke and Sarutobi Kazuma respectively. Obito already had an idea in his mind about the final destination of Uchiha Sasuke, but when he saw Sarutobi Ikume, he hesitated. The fact is obvious. Although Sarutobi Ikume is a 6-tailed Jinchuriki, his strength has barely reached the cage level. To be honest, Obito is a little disdainful of such strength. Just like when he fought Kakashi and the others in Kirigakure village, Kakashi almost defeated Sarutobi Ikume with just one burst, even if he hadn't rescued him himself. At this time, Sarutobi Yimming may have been killed by Kakashi. And Anzo, who thought he was very smart, was sealed so easily by Naraku and the others, and he was nothing more than a waste. Obito's face showed a cold look. If it weren't for the 6 tails in Sarutobi Ikume's body, he would have wanted to kill it directly at this moment. He wants to kill me. At this moment, Sarutobi Yimming seemed to have noticed something, and thought to himself. Perhaps, because of the successive blows he received, and the fact that Danzo, the 3rd generation who could protect him now, is not here, Sarutobi Yimming has matured a lot mentally at this time. He has realized his current situation, and knows that with his current strength, he is no longer worthy of being used by them. Despair. Sarutobi took a few steps back with a look of horror on his face. At this time, he was really afraid that Obito and Beizetsu would kill him. Forget it, the Vulpix is still in his body after all. We don't know when the 3 tails will be resurrected yet. If the Vulpix dies too, it will be quite troublesome. Also, Nagato still lacks manpower, so why not temporarily place him in the Rain Ninja village? At this moment, Ju on the side spoke, his tone cold and emotionless. for Zetsu and Obito, whether it is Sarutobi Yiming in front of them, or Nagato and the others, even between them, they are all just using each other. If one day someone loses value, then Zetsu there will be no mercy from anyone. In the end, Obito nodded and agreed to Zetsu, and then Sarutobi Yiming was taken away by Zetsu. After Zetsu, Rata, and Ikume Sarutobi left here, only Obito and the fainted Zuosuke were left in the huge cave. The Uchiha clan is a pitiful and pathetic clan, Obito murmured in his heart. Puff. Suddenly a splash of bright red blood splashed in the cave. What, then? A painful roar came from the cave, but it quickly disappeared. Aha. Aha. After an unknown amount of time, a group of ninjas wearing Kiriga Kyojin in uniforms arrived, led by King, who was wearing a black eye patch. As expected, you have already left here, King murmured, and a pool of red blood appeared in his sight. Then several people searched here carefully, and after finding nothing, they left here directly. There are several teams that are doing the same thing as King and others. They are all searching and cleaning everything around Kirigakure village. This was the first order given by Terumi Mei, the 5th Mizukage of Kirigakure village, after taking office, which was to send everyone to completely eliminate the lawless element in Kirigakure village and surrounding areas, and to search for traces of Obito and others. Of course Terumi Mei also knew that it would be difficult for ordinary jonins like Ao to detect Obito and his companions. However, Terumi Mei still gave them an order. If they really encounter Obito and others, don't think about trying to find out any information. There is only one word, run away. Facing a cage level warrior with extraordinary strength like Obito, even Terumi Mei himself had no confidence that he could defeat him, let alone those Kiri ninjas whose strength was only at the jonin level. Fortunately, until King and the others searched all locations, they didn't find any news about Obito. This shows that Obito's side has probably evacuated the country of water, but it is also possible that they are hiding too deep. But no matter what the situation is, with the death of the 4th generation Mizukage, Kirigakure village, known as the Blood Mist village, has ushered in a complete reform. Sand Hidden village, inside the Kazakage building. At this time, a strange scene appeared in the seal building. Chiyo, who had white hair and a rough look on his face, still lowered his head and processed the documents on his desk. But there was a young white-haired opposite figure her. It was Orochimaru who occupied Kimimura's body. It can be seen that Orochimaru is holding a scroll in his hand at this time, and his eyes have been focused on the scroll. Reincarnated. It's really a powerful forbidden technique. Orochimaru let out an exclamation, and a strange color flashed in his narrow eyes. Reincarnation. The reincarnation ninjutsu secretly developed by Tsunagakure village uses one's own chakra as a medium to transfer one's own vitality to the living or the dead. If a dead person uses this technique, the caster's chakra will turn into the soul of the deceased, and all of the caster's vitality will also be transferred to the deceased until the caster is completely dead. The deceased who was subjected to this technique will be resurrected, but the premise is that the body of the deceased must be preserved intact. This is a forbidden art that exchanges lives for lives. After Tsunagakure village developed this access control out of humanitarianism, it was sealed as a forbidden art. In today's Tsunagakure village, only Chiyo still masters the method of practicing this forbidden technique. After thorough understanding the training method of this forbidden art, Orochimaru showed an excited expression on his face. In his opinion, this reincarnation technique is comparable to the dirt reincarnation technique developed by the 2nd Hokage. However, one thing is worth mentioning, that is, whether you are reincarnated or reincarnated, you cannot achieve immortality in the true sense. Needless to say, the reincarnated body of the dirty earth has too many limitations. The body has no pain, and can only maintain the strength it had during life, and cannot continue to grow. As for reincarnation, this forbidden art of exchanging one life for another can resurrect people, but the resurrected person still has his own body. If he is a person who has died of natural old age, or a person whose body has been destroyed, it cannot be performed. Resurrected. Therefore, whether it is reincarnation from dirty land or reincarnation from the past, it is impossible for people to achieve true immortality, and the most important point is that these two forbidden arts can only be performed by living people. There are too many unstable factors, especially those who have been reincarnated, who would sacrifice their own lives to save others. This is not perfect for Orochimaru who pursues true immortality. Chapter 233. Maybe this body can. However, although reincarnation has fatal shortcomings, this forbidden technique still plays a very important role for Orochimaru. Although he now uses immortal reincarnation to obtain Kimemero's body, he has a fatal weakness, that is, his spiritual energy, or it can be said that his soul strength has been damaged. Although this damage is very weak and has almost no impact on his strength point, but Orochimaru knew deep down that this was a very obvious weakness. Without any bloodline, his soul strength and mental energy could only be considered average. Coupled with the damage he suffered when turning around, his soul strength may not be as strong as Jiraiya's at the same level now. If Orochimaru had known this weakness before, he might not have cared too much about it, but it was different now. Orochimaru, who already knew some secrets in his heart, would never pursue this weakness. The strength of the soul is damaged, and the mental energy is weakened. Orochimaru and even himself in this state, let alone compared with Pain who has the pair of immortal eyes, he feels that he may not even be able to defeat Naraku who has the main Gekkai Sharingan. After all, with his soul damaged, he will lose his resistance when faced with some powerful illusions. Orochimaru, who pursues immortality, must eliminate any possibility that can kill him, including those existences that can kill him. In other words, what Orochimaru now pursues is not just immortality, he also wants to become the strongest in the ninja world. Immortal reincarnation can give him the strongest body, while living reincarnation can restore his damaged soul. In Orochimaru's view, the life force transmitted between the reincarnated caster and the one being cast includes the soul. At this time, he couldn't wait to try it. Then Orochimaru stood up and was about to leave. As for Uchiha on the opposite side, Orochimaru saw that the other party obediently handed over the forbidden arts and even explained his experience in practicing forbidden arts. In the end, he did not attack Uchiha. In pursuit of true peace, I really didn't expect that, Tsunade. You have actually started to take action, Orochimaru murmured in his mouth as he walked out of the Kazekage building. This time when he obtained the art of reincarnation from Uchiha, he also asked him about the situation in the ninja world. When he first heard the news that the 4th Kazekage Rasa was killed by Kakashi, Orochimaru was still a little shocked. He didn't expect that Kakashi's strength would grow so fast. Although the 4th generation Kazekage Rasa was not particularly strong, he was still a solid shadow level powerhouse. But Kakashi was able to kill it directly. But that wasn't what surprised Orochimaru the most. He was surprised that Kakashi had mastered the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Orochimaru was also very jealous of the space-time ninjutsu created by the 2nd generation. It is no exaggeration to say that in today's ninja world, anyone who masters the Flying Thunder God technique can be said to have obtained the most powerful means of saving life. Let me ask you, is there any strong person in the current ninja world who can stop the activation of the Flying Thunder God technique? Even Obito, who has the power of twin gods, can't do it. As for Minato back then, if it wasn't for protecting Konoha, how could he have sacrificed himself? This is also the reason why Minato is admired by countless people. However, although Orochimaru was very keen on the Flying Thunder God technique, he did not practice it. It's not because he doesn't know the Flying Thunder God's training method. In fact, he has recorded all the ninjutsu in the entire Book of Seals, and the Flying Thunder God's technique is no exception. The main reason why Orochimaru did not practice the Flying Thunder God technique was because he knew that his talent was not enough. In fact, he also spent some time studying the Flying Thunder God technique, but he got nothing. That is to say, Orochimaru has not studied the Flying Thunder God technique since then. At first, Minato's success in cultivation was incredible to Orochimaru. He did not expect that Kakashi would also succeed in cultivation now. Yellow Flash, Silver Tooth Flash. It's really interesting. Orochimaru stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. A strange color flashed in his narrow eyes, but then he stretched out his right hand. The next moment, a white bone stretched out from his palm. After waiting for the bone to fully extend, a sharp white bone blade appeared in Orochimaru's hand. At this time, you can see that there is a fresh wound in his palm. The wound was caused when the bone blade was extended just now. But the next moment, the wound healed visibly. This is the ability of Kimemero's corpse bone veins. Not only can various bones grow from the body, but the body also has its own self-healing ability. Maybe this body is more suitable. Orochimaru looked at the bone blade in his hand and murmured in his mouth. In fact, in terms of mastering and developing ninjutsu, Orochimaru can be said to be the #1 person in the ninja world today. He has developed various forbidden techniques in an endless stream. In Konoha village, he is only slightly worse than the second generation Hokage. That's all. Normally, Orochimaru, who is so talented in ninjutsu, should not be unable to master the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. But only those who practice the Flying Thunder God Jutsu know that if you want to successfully practice the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, having strong ninjutsu talent is only the foundation. There is another point that is more important than ninjutsu talent, and that is the body's reaction ability and the fit between personal physique and the power of space. Just like Naraku today, his talent is no worse than Kakashi's, and is even slightly stronger than the opponents. However, Naraku cannot practice the Flying Thunder God technique, but Kakashi has. This is because Kakashi's physique is more compatible with space, and he can perceive the power of space more clearly, thereby further mastering the power of space. However, although Kakashi has now mastered the Flying Thunder God technique, he can only use it initially. This is why he rarely uses the Flying Thunder God technique in battle. It's not that Kakashi doesn't want to go further, but it's just that it's too difficult, and with his physique, he can only barely succeed in practicing. And another point is that his reaction speed cannot keep up with the Flying Thunder God technique, which is why he often uses Thunder Attribute Chakra to stimulate his nerves. In the entire ninja world, only the dead Minato and the second Hokage can perfectly use the Flying Thunder God technique. Orochimaru here returned directly to the base where Jugo was after leaving Tsunagakure village. Now that he has been reincarnated, he is about to start his own experiment. And that's not all. Orochimaru still has many projects that have not yet been implemented. Chapter 234. Reincarnation is better called reincarnation. A deserted area near Sand Hidden Village. Underneath the ground in this area is a complete underground laboratory. The ground was opened up and built into rooms connected together in a room at the deepest level. Orochimaru was conducting an extremely important experiment. You can see a strange energy emerging from him at this time. This energy seems to be very powerful, but it also feels a little fragile, which makes people feel very contradictory. This is life force. At this moment, a cold voice sounded, and it was Orochimaru who spoke. I saw that at this time. He was carefully looking at the energy in his body. His eyes were full of exploration, and there was a touch of madness in the deepest part of his eyes. Then Orochimaru stretched his hand forward and saw a small white snake there. However, the little snake seemed to be dying at this time, and its breath was weak. If you look carefully, you will find a ferocious wound on the little snake's body, and dark red blood flowed from the wound point. But the next moment, a shocking scene appeared. After Orochimaru put his hand on the little snake, the blood that was still there stopped instantly, and the hideous wound healed quickly, visible to the naked eye. With hiss. The next moment, the little snake with weak breath opened its eyes instantly, and a pair of snake eyes exuded coldness at this time. Orochimaru saw this, and took away the hand that touched the little snake. A look of exhaustion was visible on Orochimaru's face. This is the art of reincarnation. It is indeed a god level 1. Orochimaru stuck out his tongue, and licked his lips, and a cold smile appeared on his face. That's right, what he just used was the reincarnation technique he borrowed from Chiyo in Sand Hidden Village. After a week of practice, Orochimaru experimented with this technique for the first time. He just transferred part of his life force to the little white snake. Now it seems that the effect is very obvious. Just a trace of vitality brought the little snake that was already dying back to life. Although Orochimaru gave some of his life force for this experiment, for him, this life force has no comparison with the success of this experiment. A successful experiment showed that Orochimaru had completely mastered the forbidden art of reincarnation. The next thing Orochimaru is going to do is to improve this forbidden technique. After being reincarnated, he can only pass on his life force to others. This is not what Orochimaru wants. He already has a bold idea in his heart. Haha, it's better to call yourself reincarnated than reincarnated. Orochimaru thought in his heart. A crazy look appeared on his face. He made a bold decision in his heart. He wanted to transform the forbidden technique of reincarnation into a forbidden technique that could take away the life force and soul of others. Orochimaru felt that once this forbidden technique was successfully developed, his path to immortality would be more than half successful. Orochimaru, whose eyes were full of madness, once again started his almost crazy experiment. He didn't know how long it took before he walked out of the laboratory with a tired look on his face. At this time, you can see that Orochimaru's breath is weak, and he looks as if he is about to be seriously ill. This is because he has consumed too much life force at this time. Perhaps it was because the development of forbidden techniques was too difficult, or perhaps taking away the life force of others was too unethical, so Orochimaru did not succeed this time. But judging from the crazy look in Orochimaru's eyes, he probably wouldn't give up so easily. Orochimaru walked out of the laboratory and came to the ground. Looking at the desolate scene around him, Orochimaru said as if he was inspired, "Perhaps eternal life must be lonely." After resting briefly here, he turned around and walked into the laboratory again, the madness in his eyes becoming more and more obvious. It's all about eternal life. In the next month, Orochimaru basically conducted brutal experiments every day. Visibly to the naked eye, his body gradually became thinner and his face became older and older. There are even some age spots on my face. This was caused by he consuming too much life force. Orochimaru, whose life force had dropped sharply, even had a trace of twilight energy on his body. Compared with Orochimaru, who was surrounded by twilight energy, the several white snakes in the laboratory had greatly increased aura. One or two white snakes even had bulging heads, as if they were about to turn into dragons. But at this time, Orochimaru seemed not to notice these changes at all, and was still conducting experiments crazily. I saw a small white snake in his hand, and then a black substance that looked like liquid appeared in Orochimaru's hand, and a biting coldness radiated from the black substance. Orochimaru's right hand was wrapped in a black substance, and from a distance it looked like he was wearing a black rubber glove. The moment the black substance appeared, the little white snake in Orochimaru's hand showed a flash of panic on its face, as if it had encountered its natural enemy. The next moment, a scene that made people feel scalp numb appeared. The little snake in Orochimaru's hand, the white snake, that was originally full of vitality, instantly became sluggish, and a twilight energy appeared on the whole snake. At the same time, a faint green light appeared in Orochimaru's black hand. It's finally going to work. At this moment, Orochimaru suddenly sneered, his old-looking face full of excitement. Then the faint green light visible to the naked eye penetrated into his body, and the twilight energy surrounding Orochimaru instantly decreased a lot. At the same time, the white snake in his hand drooped its head, completely lifeless. Orochimaru succeeded. He had just succeeded in transferring the life force from White Snake to his own body. Orochimaru looked down at his right hand that was wrapped in a black substance, the excitement in his eyes becoming more and more obvious. In fact, the black substance is a substance created by Orochimaru at the expense of his own life force. Because it is a substance formed from life force, black matter can touch the life force of other creatures. After the black substance touches the life force, Orochimaru will absorb the life force that the black substance touches into his body through another method. After countless experiments, and even almost transferring all his life force, Orochimaru finally succeeded. He looked excited at this time, and then he raised his black hand and walked towards the remaining white snakes, using the same method to transfer back all the life force he had transferred. Chapter 235 Reincarnated Again. Call. In the laboratory, after transferring all the transferred life force back to his body, Orochimaru breathed a sigh of relief. The success of the experiment made Orochimaru feel relieved. Orochimaru has been transferring his life force away. Even if he thinks about it now, he still feels scared. If this experiment fails, he doesn't know how long it will take to replenish the lost life force. Even if he is not careful, he may fall into this experiment. But fortunately, it was successful now, and Orochimaru has now transferred all his life force back. Visible to the naked eye, Orochimaru's old-looking face became young again, and the twilight energy surrounding him disappeared, and a vitality emanated from him. Orochimaru looked down at his black hand. After thinking briefly, he decided to give it a new name, a domineering name. Let's call you Death Hand. Orochimaru murmured in his mouth, and then he raised his feet and prepared to walk out of the laboratory, but just when he was about to walk out of the laboratory, he turned his head and glanced at the extremely messy laboratory, with the corpses of several white snakes, various experimental equipment, and bottles and jars containing various liquids. The laboratory looked extremely messy at this time. A flash of thought flashed in Orochimaru's eyes, and then he walked out of the laboratory. Maybe it's time to find an assistant, he thought to himself. Orochimaru left the laboratory and stepped onto the ground. Without hesitation, he rushed in one direction. In the sand-hidden village, at this time, more than a month had passed since the day Orochimaru borrowed the reincarnation. Chiyo was handling the affairs of Tsunagakure village in the Kazakage officer's usual point, but just today, we once again welcomed a guest here. A young man with short red hair and handsome appearance, but with his eyes always closed, appeared in front of Chiyo. Chiyo noticed that there was a man with a white cat mask standing next to the boy. Who are you? Chiyo asked with a slight frown on her face, and at the same time she began to feel wary. Since these two people were able to appear in front of him silently, it was enough to prove their strength. What's more, Chiyo also sensed a powerful force in them, especially the red-haired boy. All the teenagers nowadays are so strong. Chiyo couldn't help but murmur in her mouth. The red-haired boy with powerful energy in his body reminded her of Orochimaru more than a month ago. Elder Chiyo, don't be nervous. At this moment, the red-haired boy in front spoke. In fact, if it was Gaara or his father Rata here, he would have recognized that the red-haired boy standing in front of Chiyo at this time was Uzumaki Naraku. However, Chiyo and he have never met each other, so it is normal for them not to know him. Naraku here continued to speak. I'm Uzumaki Naraku. Uzumaki Naraku. Uzumaki Naraku, who defeated the 4th Raikage many years ago. Chiyo in front instantly became alert after hearing Naraku's identity. She only learned about Naraku's defeat of the 4th Raikage recently. As for where the news came from, she didn't know. Anyway, it was now spread throughout the ninja world that the 4th Raikage was defeated by a child. Facing the existence that could defeat the 4th Raikage, Chiyo did not dare to be careless at all. She knew that this was a genius who was not weaker than Kakashi, Konoha. Ninja, what are you doing here? After a slight adjustment, Chiyo spoke cautiously, his tone full of vigilance. Today's Tsunagakure village can no longer withstand any storms. Although it sounds sad, it is true. Even an ordinary cage level expert is enough to completely destroy the current Tsunagakure village, let alone one who can defeat the 4th Raikage. Chiyo didn't dare to be careless at all. I'm here to ask Elder Chiyo for a ninjutsu. Naraku got straight to the point and stated his purpose without any hesitation. A ninjutsu. Chiyo frowned slightly. Haha, Konoha village, the leader of the 5 great ninja villages, has more than 1,000 secret arts. Why would it come to my Tsunagakure village to ask for ninjutsu? Chiyo sneered and said. Naraku didn't pay too much attention to Chiyo's very unfriendly attitude. He knew that it was just Chiyo's temper, and he couldn't argue with an old woman who was about to be buried. If it's an ordinary ninjutsu, I, Konoha, certainly don't lack it, but what I want is not an ordinary ninjutsu. Naraku continued to speak. As he spoke, he exuded a vague aura. Chiyo, who was opposite him, suddenly changed his expression after feeling Naraku's aura. She knew that, no matter what the other party wanted this time, she had to agree. I heard that Sand-Hidden Village has developed a forbidden technique that can bring people back to life. I wonder if Elder Chiyo can lend me a chance to observe it. Naraku said calmly. It's reincarnation again. Chiyo felt surprised, but also felt somewhat normal. After all, with the power of Konoha, all kinds of ninjutsu must have been recorded, and in Tsunagakure village, apart from those special blood inheritance limits, I'm afraid that only the forbidden jutsu of reincarnation can be used. First it was Orochimaru, and now it was Uzumaki Naraku. Chiyo's expression was complicated. She didn't know what the two of them were going to do with this forbidden technique. After being reincarnated. At this time, she deeply regretted supporting the development of this forbidden technique. At that time, Chiyo only wanted to use this forbidden technique to resurrect her son and daughter-in-law, but she did not expect that the world would be unpredictable. The forbidden technique developed by Sunagakure village has not yet been used, but now it is being targeted by others. Although Chiyo was a little helpless, she was inferior to others and had no other choice. In the end, she obediently handed the scroll recording the reincarnation training methods to the masked ninja next to Naraku. After this person took the scroll, he opened it on the spot. After briefly confirming the above content, a gentle female voice sounded on the field. That's right, it's the art of reincarnation. When Naraku heard this voice, the corners of his mouth raised slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. Then he turned and walked directly out of the office. Thank you very much, Elder Chiyo. After Naraku turned around, the masked ninja who followed him also turned around and left. By the way, Elder Chiyo, I heard that your grandson, the Red Sand Scorpion, has been active in Rain Ninja Village recently. You can send someone to check it out. Scorpion. Chiyo's expression changed instantly when he heard this. Chapter 236. Haha, what a coincidence, uncle. The Land of Rain. Inside Kazukige's office. After Naraku left, Chiyo fell into deep thought alone. At this time, all she could think about was what Naraku said just now. The Scorpion of Red Sand, her grandson, is also the person Chiyo cares about the most. After hesitating for a long time, a look of determination appeared on Chiyo's face. She decided to send someone to the Kingdom of Rain to check the news and see if there were really traces of scorpions there, as Naraku said. At this time, Naraku had already left Sand Hidden Village. The environment in the Kingdom of Wind is really bad. A gentle female voice sounded in Naraku's ears. The speaker was a beautiful girl with black curly hair and a pair of deep red eyes. It is Uchiha. She was the masked ninja who accompanied Naraku. Yes, the Kingdom of Wind is full of yellow sand, and their economic strength is the weakest among the 5 major countries. Naraku nodded and said he was right. Not to mention compared to the rich Fire Kingdom, even compared to the Water Kingdom surrounded by water, the economy of the Wind Kingdom was inferior. In fact, if the 4th Kazukage Rasa hadn't used his place of gold to exchange a lot of wealth for Sunagakure village, the current economy of Sunagakure village would only be worse. Although Naraku sympathized with the environment in the Kingdom of Wind, he didn't think too much about it, and the same was true for Kurenoi beside him. Both of them are ninjas, and they know very well how cruel the ninja world is compared with some real suffering and darkness. Just a poor living environment is nothing. Just like Naruto in the original work, although he lived in the rich Fire country and the prosperous Konoha village, his childhood was still extremely dark, which was no different from Gaara who lived in the Sand Hidden Village. What a difference. Naraku knows that in this cruel ninja world, only strength is the last word. If he was not strong enough back then, the 3rd generation of Konoha is still in power today, and he may have become a sharp blade under Danzo. As for Kushina and Naruto, their end may be even worse. If you are rich, you will help the world. If you are poor, you will be alone. If one day Naraku becomes capable, he might help the people of the Kingdom of Wind improve their environment, but now he just wants to protect the people he cares about. Let's go, Red. It is good. Then, the two of them rushed towards the border of the Kingdom of Wind, but not long after, they stopped. Who is this person? Hang Xiu frowned slightly and looked at the white-haired boy standing in front of them. She was a little confused as to why he would do this. At this time, Naraku seemed to sense something, and a wry smile suddenly appeared on his face. Haha, what a coincidence, Uncle Master. It's rare for me to run into you when I leave the village, Naraku said with a wry smile, and as he said that, he took a step forward and stood in front of Hong. Uncle Master, could he be Todoroki? Was slightly startled when she heard what Naraku said, and a cold figure appeared in her mind. Then she looked up at the white-haired boy in front of her. After comparing it with the figure in her mind again and again, she couldn't believe that the boy in front of her was actually Orochimaru, one of the 3. Haha, my nephew's perception is still so strong. Even if he can't see with his eyes, he can still recognize his uncle. It's really surprising. Orochimaru, who was holding Kimimura's body, said with a sneer. His words were equivalent to a direct admission of his identity. After hearing this, Kurenoi, who was standing behind Naraku, had a look of surprise on her face. She did not expect that the person in front of her was actually Orochimaru. Naraku was not surprised by this. Although Orochimaru has changed his body now, the cold aura in his body has never changed. With that aura, Naraku recognized him as soon as he appeared. Kimemero's body has been replaced. It seems that the blood disease caused by the corpse veins has been resolved. Naraku thought to himself. He had met Kimimero several times before, so he was familiar with the special energy on his body, so he knew that Orochimaru had now changed his body. We haven't seen each other for a few years. Why don't you let me test whether your strength, nephew, has improved? Looking at the grown-up Naraku in front of him, Orochimaru's eyes flashed. He had always been very interested in Uzumaki Naraku point. Although the other party looked disabled now, Orochimaru had an intuition that Uzumaki Naraku would never remain silent. Another point is that Orochimaru sensed an unusually powerful energy in his body. This energy was even more powerful than the energy he or Kimimero had mastered in Raichi Cave. Could it be that he has also mastered the magic of Myomu Mountain? Orochimaru thought in his heart, and then he flashed and rushed forward quickly. Latent Shadow Bone Snake. The next moment, a low shout came from Orochimaru's mouth, and then his right hand was seen reaching out, and he swung it forward, and in an instant, more than a dozen long snakes were thrown out from his cuffs. There are more than a dozen long snakes of different colors, but one thing they have in common is that their bodies have no flesh and blood. The bodies of these long snakes are made up of bones of various colors, and they look like they make your scalp numb. But Naraku here did not sit still and wait for death. Powerful chakra burst out from his body, and in an instant 8 golden chains as thick as an adult man's arms sprang out from his back. Call out, call out, call out. In an instant, 3 chains sprang forward, hitting the dozen long snakes, while the remaining chains were guarded in front of Hong Shen. Boom. There was a loud noise as the golden chains collided with the long snakes. In an instant, a powerful concussive force was transmitted from the chain to Naraku's body. The power has increased so much, Naraku murmured. If it was Orochimaru in the past, the latent shadow snake hand used by the other party at that time would definitely not be able to compete with his own diamond chain. But now they are just a few ordinary long snakes, and they can actually withstand the impact of the diamond chains. A solemn look appeared on Naraku's face. He knew that Orochimaru's strength had greatly increased, and he could never be the same again. Since my uncle insists on doing this, my nephew is welcome. Naraku chuckled, and then a violent energy was released from his body. Crack. Crack. A burst of thunder roared, and thick blue arcs appeared around Naraku's body, and a violent aura emanated from these arcs. Haha, it's a move similar to the 4th Raikage's thunder armor, Orochimaru murmured in his mouth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Sunagakure Village at the End of Days. Crackling. Crackling. Within the Kingdom of Wind, outside Sand Hidden Village. At this time, a roaring sound of thunder sounded in this area. You can see that Naraku was surrounded by a burst of blue thunder and lightning, and a violent aura broke out from his whole body. The next moment, violent thunder attribute chakra was wrapped around the golden chain behind Naraku. Not long after, the diamond chain that was originally shining with dazzling golden light was now wrapped in a blue light, and dense thunder and lightning wrapped around the chain. With this level of thunder attribute chakra, could it be that he really defeated the 4th Raikage back then? Kurenai, who was standing behind Naraku, looked at Naraku, who was full of momentum, and a strange color flashed in his red eyes. Boom, boom, boom. But at this moment, several huge white clouds of smoke appeared on the field, and at this time Orochimaru kept slapping the ground with one hand. Psychic art. A cold voice came from Orochimaru's mouth, and then you could see that after the smoke cleared, several huge bone snakes appeared on the field. These bone snakes are all made up of bones of various colors, or it is more appropriate to call them skeleton snakes. The next moment, these huge skeleton snakes rushed towards Naraku. Naturally, Naraku would not sit still and wait for death. Under his control, several golden chains wrapped in blue thunder suddenly rushed forward and collided with the skeleton snakes. Boom. A violent sound sounded on the field, and the chain and the skeleton snake collided with each other, creating a huge impact and setting off a huge puff of smoke. Swish. But at this moment, the space next to Naraku suddenly trembled violently, and then a silver figure appeared there. With a black mask, long silver hair, and a somewhat slender figure. The person coming was none other than Kakashi. This is the Kingdom of Wind. Looking at the boundless yellow sand in front of him, Kakashi frowned slightly. He had just prepared to return to the village from Hidden Kiri village, but he didn't know that Naraku had arrived here. Han is here too. Kakashi turned his head and glanced at Kunoe, who was standing behind Naraku, somewhat confused about the current situation. Kakashi. An exclamation came from the front at this moment. It was Orochimaru, and at this moment his eyes fell on Kakashi beside Naraku, with a trace of fear flashing in his eyes. Although he was very confident in his own strength, Orochimaru also knew that it was impossible for him to keep Kakashi, who had mastered the Flying Thunder God technique point, and Naraku is also on the side. Although he is using Sharingan now, Orochimaru has an intuition. He feels that Naraku's strength may not be much weaker than Kakashi. After a slight hesitation, Orochimaru decided to withdraw first. Today's Konoha village is strong, and Orochimaru does not want to expose his methods too much until his experiment is truly successful. Haha, my nephew, my uncle has something to do today, so I won't play here with you. Orochimaru raised the corners of his mouth slightly and said with a hint of sneer, and then he disappeared in a flash. Orochimaru, Kakashi murmured in his mouth and looked at the other persons leaving back. His eyes were a little complicated, but he did not pursue him. Kakashi was no stranger to Orochimaru, the same as Naraku, even though Orochimaru had changed bodies. But Kakashi could still sense the familiar aura on the other person's body. After Orochimaru left, Kakashi directly used the Flying Thunder God to take Naraku and Kunoe back to Konoha village. After the news of the alliance between Konoha village and Kirigakure village spread throughout the ninja world, the remaining Kumogakure village and Iwagakure village were under pressure, and the two villages also settled their differences and announced the news of the alliance. The current situation in the ninja world is that Konoha, Tsunagakure, and Kirigakure are on the same team, while Iwa Ninja and Kumo Ninja are on the same team. At least that's how it looks on the surface. In the following period of time, although no major war broke out between the two forces, small frictions never stopped. I don't know where Kumogakure got the news that there were no shadow level experts stationed in Tsunagakure village. They began to harass the border of Sand Hidden village intentionally or unintentionally, and even in the name of missions, ninjas from Kumo Hidden village traveled through the Kingdom of Wind many times. Chiyo was extremely angry about this, but also felt a sense of incomparable sadness. Although he was very reluctant to admit it, the current Tsunagakure village was indeed unable to compete with a powerful ninja village like Kumogakure village. After negotiating with Kumogakure to no avail, Chiyo could only ask Konoha for help. After receiving Chiyo's request for help, Tsunade sent Kakashi directly to Tsunagakure village without any nonsense. With Kakashi's strength, it didn't take long to completely resolve the matter, but after that, another rumor spread in the ninja world. That is, Kumogakure's fourth Raikage was defeated by Konoha's ninja again, but this time it was Konoha's Silver Fang Flash. For a time, Kakashi was in the limelight, and his name of Silver Fang Flash was comparable to that of Yellow Flash. But Kakashi doesn't care about this now. When he returned to Konoha village from the Kingdom of Wind, he went into seclusion and practiced with Naraku as soon as possible. After Kakashi defeated the fourth Raikage, Konoha village undoubtedly returned to its dominance as the leader of the 5 great ninja villages. After this incident, both the Iwa Ninja and Kumo Ninja villages were quiet for a long time, and no one went to the Kingdom of Wind to harass Tsunagakure village anymore. Sand Hidden village, inside the Kazakage building. After Konoha village sent Kakashi to solve the trouble in Tsunagakure village, Chiyo finally breathed a sigh of relief, but soon a look of anger appeared on her face. Even if he is a criminal, he is still a member of my Tsunagakure village. Don't bully others too much, Orochimaru, Chiyo said to the white-haired boy in front of him. The white-haired boy is Orochimaru. After Orochimaru heard Chiyo's scolding, he was not angry, but there was an extremely cold aura emanating from his body. Elder Kyanio needs to think carefully. I just want some criminals who are going to be executed. Those people have no value to you, right? As he spoke, Orochimaru's tone became colder and colder. Chiyo's eyes narrowed at this, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. She knew that Orochimaru was not discussing with her, but threatening her nakedly. Forget about the previous reincarnation. After all, it is just a ninjutsu, even if it is a forbidden jutsu that Tsunagakure village spent countless efforts to develop. But even the most important forbidden technique is nothing compared to the safety of Sand Hidden Village. But it was different now. Orochimaru actually asked her for the criminals imprisoned in Tsunagakure village. Chiyo was a little hard to accept this. Although those people were criminals, they were still people of Tsunagakure village. If they were handed over to Orochimaru like this, then their days in Tsunagakure village would really be over. Chapter 238 Rain Ninja Village. Half a year later, Ninja Village. Rain Ninja Village is a ninja village located in the kingdom of Sichuan. The outside world knows very little about the kingdom of Sichuan. They only know about the domestic secession and civil war. But in fact, since Sancho Hanzo was killed by Pain, he was led by Nagato. The Akatsuki organization has long unified the country. In the history of the ninja world, Rain Ninja Village is very sad. Rain Ninja Village has been a battlefield between great powers since ancient times, resulting in the displacement of countless people. As for the Akatsuki organization, founded by Nagato and Konan, many of the people in it are orphans, left behind by the war. Although their original intention was to establish eternal peace, there is no doubt that they have now been eroded by darkness. The leader of Akatsuki is now the Six Paths Pain, who is controlled by Uzumaki Nagato. He possesses the Rinnegan, one of the three major pupil techniques in the ninja world, but in fact, Akatsuki's will has long been controlled by Uchiha, Obito and Zetsu behind him. At this time, the Akatsuki organization's manpower should not be as full as in the original work. At least Itachi has not joined yet, and Idara from Iwa Ninja Village may not have joined either. At this time, an appearance appeared outside the Rain Ninja Village. A familiar figure appeared. The man with short red hair and a straight back was none other than Naraku. At this moment, he opened his eyes, and a pair of dark eyes appeared in his eyes. Yes, after half a year of hard work, Naraku has successfully grown his eyes again. Although they have not grown completely, he can already see basic things. The reason why he appeared in the Rain Ninja Village was because he received an order from Tsunade. Now Kakashi asked her for a long leave, and Shisu needed to take care of his position as Anbu minister, so Naraku had no choice but to take action. In fact, even if Tsunade did not give this order, Naraku still planned to come to Ninja Village to inquire. If possible, he even wanted to directly help the cheap senior brother and sister end this sad life early. But Naraku was just thinking about it. His main purpose this time was to inquire about information. Of course, if he really encountered Nagato and the others, he wouldn't mind taking action to end their pain in advance. Standing at the entrance of Ninja Village, Naraku carefully recalled the memories of Ninja Village in his mind. Judging from the current timeline, the main members of the Akatsuki organization should include Pain of the Six Paths controlled by Nagato, Konan, one of the founders of the Akatsuki organization, Obito Uchiha who is hiding behind the scenes, and Zetsu, from Tsunagakure village, the genius puppet master, Scorpion, Kakuzu who existed in the first generation, and the Inigaki Kisame who has betrayed Kirigakure village. This is everyone Naraku can think of right now, but before the Akatsuki organization's real plan begins, Obito and Zetsu generally won't have too much contact with Nagato, so they won't appear in Kirigakure village. Naraku thought to himself. As for the movements of other people, Naraku can't remember clearly. After all, this time is still a little short of the actual start of the plot in the original work. Naraku raised his head and looked at the Rain Ninja Village in front of him. It rains all year round, the buildings are mainly made of steel, and there are many pipes and sewers. Naraku, who is familiar with the plot, knows that the rain in front of him is not ordinary rain, but the large-scale sensing ninjutsu used by Pain. This ninjutsu covers the entire Rain Ninja Village. Once a stranger enters the Rain Ninja Village, he will be Pain noticed it immediately. But even if Naraku didn't know the plot, relying on his strong perception ability, he also noticed the abnormality of the rain. He sensed that every drop of rain contained a trace of chakra, too. be able to cover such a large area. You are worthy of being a pure-blooded Uzumaki clan, Naraku murmured in his mouth, and then walked to the Rain Ninja village point at the same time. You can see slight energy swaying around him. All the rain falling from the sky will automatically avoid Naraku's body, and not a drop of rain will fall on him. For Naraku, who is proficient in various sealing techniques, this is just a very ordinary little trick. Kaguya's eyes open. Naraku's body exploded with energy as he just walked into the Rain Ninja village. With him as the center, all energy fluctuations within a radius of more than 10 miles could be clearly sensed by him. The Rain Ninja village is not that big. With Naraku's current strength, his range of perception can cover the entire Rain Ninja village. Then, it didn't take long for Naraku to sense two powerful auras. After a slight hesitation, he turned around and rushed in that direction. At the same time, there is a huge rooftop. Recently, Mr. Madara, Zetsu and the others seem to have had an accident. A woman with light blue hair said to a person standing under the shadow whose face could not be seen clearly, "It doesn't matter, we don't have to pay attention to their irrelevant things. If one day they affect the plan, I won't mind letting them feel the real pain." The man who slowly walked out of the shadows said in a tone that could not be questioned. These two people are the founder of the Akatsuki organization, Conan, known as the Angel, and the leader Pain. Suddenly, Pain's purple Samsara eyes condensed slightly, and a powerful aura was released from him. "Well, it seems someone broke in." A majestic voice came from his mouth. Zayanin frowned slightly after hearing this, and then said, "I'll deal with him." As he spoke, a pair of paper wings appeared behind the woman. "No, Zayanin, he's already here." Swish. Just after Pain finished speaking, a red-haired figure appeared in their sight. It was Naraku. "It seems that I have been discovered in advance." Naraku raised his head and glanced at the two people with normal expressions. He guessed that he should have been discovered by Pain, because Zayanin's words alone could not detect his movements at all. "It seems that there are only 2 of them in a Megacure village now, but I don't know how many of Nagato's 6 paths puppets have been completed." Naraku guessed in his mind as he looked at the two people in front of him. "Who are you?" Pain said coldly. "Countless paper shurikens have appeared around Conan. My name is Uzumaki Naraku, and I'm a member of the Uzumaki clan like you, but it's not you in front of me, it's you in the wheelchair," Naraku said with a smile. Naraku had other plans for Nagato and the two, so he was not prepared to hide his identity. "I know everything about you. I have only one purpose for coming here this time, to borrow your reincarnation eye." Naraku continued to speak. As for using the Rinnegan eyes, Naraku didn't lie. In order to welcome the Otsutsume clan in the future, he would not let go of Nagato's Rinnegan eyes, but he would not transplant them to himself. Chapter 239. Since you can't escape with words, let's fight. In the Rain Ninja village. "Ah, you looking for death?" Conan was furious when she heard that Naraku wanted to use the Rinnegan. She saw all the shurikens that were beside her just stabbing Naraku in front of her. "Aha, oh, don't be nervous, we can have a nice talk." Naraku, who was surging with blow light, instantly dodged all of Conan's attacks. Conan's pupils shrank slightly when she saw this, and the next moment, chakra surged through her body. Just when she was about to continue her attack, "Zayanin, let me do it." "You go back first." Pain stopped Zayanin. "Are you going to take action personally and let Zayanin go back to protect the main body?" Naraku thought to himself after seeing this. Cold eyes fell on Naraku, the uninvited guest. After a slight hesitation, Zayanin turned and left. She had absolute confidence in Pain. "Uzumaki Naraku, what do you want to do?" "If you want to borrow the reincarnation eye," Pain said with an expressionless face as he looked at Erayao. "Who is he?" "Apart from Zayanin, even that guy may not know everything about me." Someone in a cave in the distance muttered to himself. "Does he even know the secret of the Rinnegan?" Nagato, who was hiding far away, was surprised. "I know the reincarnation eyes are very important to you, but believe me, with your strength, you can't control these eyes." After Zayanin left here, Naraku said calmly to Pain in front of him, or rather, he said to Nagato who was controlling Pain, "The eyes of God do not allow people like you to blaspheme." The expressionless Pain said in an extremely majestic tone. Oh, Uzumaki Nagato is really a miserable character, Naraku thought to himself after seeing this scene. Seeing Nagato's reaction now, Naraku knew that he would not hand over the Rinnegan easily, but this was what Naraku expected. Sure. Enough. We still have to let my nephew do this kind of thing, Naraku murmured in his mouth, and then a violent aura emanated from him. The next moment, his scarlet eyes looked directly at Pain in front of him. Since you can't hide with words, let's fight. Strong fighting spirit was released from Naraku's body. Black flame thunder, powerful eye power and chakra were released from Naraku's body at the same time, and a bright red blood tear flowed from his right eye. The next moment, a black flame suddenly appeared on Shyandeo Pain's body. ZHI. Within the black flames, there are streaks of black thunder entwining each other. Shyandeo Pain's extremely cold eyes fell on the black flames. Shinra Tenseng. Boom. The next moment, the air trembled, and then a powerful repulsive force came from Pain's body, and the black thunder that could burn everything was easily deflected by him. Then I saw Pain quickly forming seals with his hands, and then he slapped his palm on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. The next moment, a burst of white smoke appeared on the field. You have the same eyes as that guy, Nagato thought to himself in the distance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have completed all 6 paths. It seems that this battle will be very difficult. After seeing all the 6 paths of Pain gathered together, Naraku knew that he had to be very energetic today. You must know that Naruto, who was in his sage state, was finally beaten by Pain. Of course, he broke out again for the Crown Princess, our son of destiny. Psychic Art. 1. Of the 6 paths, the Beast Path slapped his palm on the ground and shouted loudly, and then a dozen huge psychic beasts appeared on the field instantly. Naraku's eyes narrowed slightly at this, and the next moment, a powerful pupil power overflowed from his eyes, and then a dazzling golden light flashed from his body. The next moment, a Susan with dazzling golden light appeared on the field. The golden Susan held a golden sword in each hand. Kai. Several air-piercing sounds sounded on the field, and Golden Susanoo was seen swinging his sword continuously. Huge golden sword lights appeared one after another. The sword lights tore through the air and struck hard at the psychic beast in front. That must be the Hell Path, Naraku thought to himself. His eyes fell behind the Heavenly Deo. Naraku knew that the one hiding behind the Heavenly Deo was the Hell Deo, and could resurrect the other 6 paths. The art of multiple shadow clones. Naraku formed a seal with his hands and shouted lowly, and then more than a dozen shadow clones appeared on the field. Then under his control, these shadow clones all rushed towards Human World Deo and the others. As for his true body, he sets his sights on the realms of heaven and hell. Spiral Shuriken. The next moment, wind attribute chakra condensed in Naraku's hand, and then a huge shuriken formed by wind attribute energy appeared in his hand, and Naraku aimed at Shyandeo, and threw it. Shyandeo stretched out his hand expressionlessly. Shenra Shien's Heng. Then the powerful repulsive force appeared again, and the Rasen shuriken was blown away in the next moment. Haha, this is what I've been waiting for, Naraku suddenly sneered. Then flicked one hand and sent a shuriken flying towards the directions of heaven and hell. Then he formed a seal with one hand. Shuriken. Shadow clone jutsu. I saw countless shurikens stabbing towards the heaven and hell. It's a small skill, Shyandeo said with disdain in his tone, and then he flashed his body and attacked Naraku directly. As for the shurikens, they were knocked away by his hand. Swish. But at this moment, a blue figure flashed past. It was Naraku. At this moment, blue light flashed on his body, and a stream of blood tears flowed from his left eye. Using Shunkang, he appeared directly next to the Hell Realm. Naraku's left hand was seen with thunder flashing, and dense thunder and lightning concentrated on him on the left hand. The next moment, Naraku used his hand as a knife and struck Heldeo's body hard. Crack. Crack. The dense thunder and lightning made bursts of roars, and the next moment, a loud bang came, and how Shyandeo saw a pile of scrap iron-like things flying past his eyes, which was the corpse of Helldeo. Naraku eliminated the Hell Realm with one blow. Boom, boom. But at this moment, clouds of white smoke appeared on the field, which were the shadow clones, and they had all been destroyed. Be prepared to meet the wrath of God. At This moment, Shiandao's cold and ruthless voice reached Naraku's forehead. Naraku felt speechless about this. He didn't know whether this was what Tendo Pain wanted to say, or whether it was what Nagato said. This guy really thinks of himself as a god. Naraku couldn't help complaining in his heart. Then he looked up at the human world, the hungry ghost world, the Shura world, and the heavenly world in front of him. The violent thunder attribute chakra was released from Naraku point except for the animal path that was entangled by the golden Sasana, and the hell path that was just destroyed by Naraku. The other 4 paths are here. Let's deal with the hungry ghost path first. Naraku thought to himself. Chapter 240. It's time for us to actually meet Uzumaki Nagato. Black flame thunder, Naraku shouted. He used the pupil technique again, but this time his target was not the heavenly Dao, but the human Dao standing next to him. Well, but at this moment, a strong stinging feeling came from Naraku's eyes. Sure enough, my eyes still haven't fully recovered. Naraku murmured. Point boom, boom, boom. At this moment, a sound broke through the air, and Shuradeo, who was standing in front, took a step forward, and then various weapons appeared on his body, and then all of these weapons rushed towards Naraku at high speed. At the same time, Shiandao also rushed over behind the weapon. The hungry ghost Dao on the other side is now absorbing the black flame thunder from the human Dao. Point boom. But at this moment, the golden Susan, who was still entangled with the animal path and those psychic beasts, suddenly appeared behind the human path and the Shura path. Without any hesitation, the golden Susan held the sword in both hands and slashed forward. Kai. The sword light flashed out at a very fast speed and fell on Shuradeo like tearing the air, splitting his body in half in an instant. Human Dao on the side was able to survive because of his quick reaction. Naraku here used Shunkang to avoid the weapons of Shuradeo, and at the same time, his body appeared behind animal Dao. Crack. Without any hesitation, Naraku took action directly. The violent thunder attribute chakra surged out from his hand, and then formed a blue spear. The spear was completely formed by dense thunder and lightning, and it looked extraordinary. Crackling. At this moment, the sound of thunder and lightning exploded endlessly. Just when Naraku was about to throw the thunder spear forward, an indifferent voice sounded from behind him. All things are attracted by heaven. It was Shiandao who spoke, and he stretched out one hand and pointed at Naraku's back. Almost instantly, Naraku felt an extremely powerful suction force coming from his back, and his body, together with the lightning spear in his hand, all flew backwards at high speed. The Samsarai, what a pair of powerful eyes. A look of surprise flashed in Naraku's eyes, but then, an interesting expression appeared on his face. I don't know if you dare to take this move, Naraku thought to himself. Then an extremely violent energy surged out of him, and the blue electric light that was visible to the naked eye that originally surrounded him to intensify. Crack. The blue thunder and lightning in the thick arms of a baby surrounded Naraku's body. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a real thunder and lightning, striking towards the heaven. Seeing this scene, Shiandao's pupils condensed slightly. After careful consideration, he finally lifted the Wangxiang Shianayan. He was not sure he could withstand the thunder and lightning bombardment surrounding Naraku. After Wangxiang Shianayan ended, Naraku's body stopped, but at this moment a figure appeared beside him. Naraku looked up and saw that it was the human path. Shun. Kang. Eye. Power exploded, and a line of blood and tears flowed from his left eye. Without any hesitation, Naraku directly used Shunkang to leave here. Compared to the other paths, Naraku is most afraid of the human path. Human world Dao has the power to absorb souls. If caught by it, human world Dao will definitely devour one soul. Spiral Shuriken. The escaped Naraku stretched out his palm, and sharp wind attribute chakra surged out of him, and the spiral Shuriken was condensed almost instantly. This time he threw the Rasen Shuriken towards the beast path. Kai. The Shuriken tore through the air and appeared in front of Zhu Shengdao almost instantly. This time, Chiandeo, who wanted to rescue him, was blocked by Golden Susanoo, who directly enveloped his body. Like a machine part being cut, the animal knife was torn to pieces the moment it came into contact with the spiral shuriken. Susanoo was not idle, and swung the blood knife again, and saw a huge blood blade passing through, and the body of the three-headed hell dog shattered the animal path. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the animal path was solved, the dozens of huge psychic beasts on the field turned into a huge puff of smoke and dissipated. He even knows how to act like an animal, Nagato. In the distance secretly thought in his heart, and an unexpected expression appeared on his face. Nagato, do you want to continue fighting? Looking at Pain, who was left with only the path of heaven and the path of the world, Naraku asked with a relaxed expression, knowing that Nagato could hear him in the distance. Boom. What came back to him was the fierce attack of the human world. It seems that you have to reselect the 6 paths, Nagato. Naraku shook his head slightly. So far, he has solved the hell path, the hungry ghost path, and the animal path just now. As for the remaining ways of heaven, earth, and Shura, it is just a matter of time. Rasengan. When Naraku was fighting in close combat with Renji and Ao, he saw the opportunity and used a Rasengan to turn it into a pile of scrap metal. The remaining cultivation path didn't last long, and Naraku used the diamond chain to directly cut it into pieces. Boom. But at this moment, a violent momentum sounded on the field, and the tall golden Susan flew straight backwards. It's about to explode. Chiandeo. Naraku turned his head and looked at Chiandeo in front of him, whose momentum was rising. Using Susan to restrain the enemy is the latest technique developed by Naraku, but only he and Itachi can use this technique, because only the two of them can fight separately from Susan. Using the powerful Susanoo power to restrain an enemy can directly make them incapacitated. He was the first person he saw who could break free from the shackles of his golden Susan. It's just the beginning now. Chiandeo looked at Naraku and said lightly, it's just the beginning. That won't work. He carefully felt the tubes inserted into Chiandeo's body that transmitted chakra. Then he murmured in his mouth, we can't let this guy explode now. Naraku's figure flashed forward, and he rushed forward. Naraku, who knew that Shinra Tensei had a 5-second cooldown, slowly pulled out the black tubes from his body bit by bit, while fighting Chiandeo slowly. As the last tube was pulled out, this Chiandeo also fell to the ground. Boom. Finally, Naraku used the scroll to receive Chiandeo's body into the scroll. The way of heaven is actually Ahiko's body. Naraku, who knows this, does not want to destroy him. After all, it is not suitable to fight to the death with Nagato and the others now. It's time for us to meet Uzumaki Nagato. Immediately, Naraku left here in a flash, and he had sensed Nagato's true location. Chapter 241. The Immortal Two-Person Group. In a slightly hidden cave outside Uninja Village, there was a man with short blue hair. The female Kayan, who was wearing a large black robe, was looking forward with a slight frown on her face. You can see several red clouds on the black robe, worn by the woman. The woman was Xiaonan, one of the founders of the Akatsuki organization, and standing in front of her was a red-haired man in a wheelchair. In Xiaonan's sight, there were several black tubes inserted behind the red-haired man. One end of the black pipe was inside the man's body, and the other end was directly submerged into the mountain. The red-haired man is Naraku's target this time. Uzumaki Nagato. At this time, Nagato had already connected with the heretic demon. Although he gained very powerful abilities from the heretic demon, the same Uzumaki Nagato lost more. As a pure-blooded Uzumaki clan, normally speaking, Uzumaki Nagato's vitality is he is much stronger than ordinary people, not to mention that at his current age, he is in his prime. But maybe it was because he couldn't perfectly control the pair of eyes that didn't belong to him, or maybe because the heretic demons were constantly drawing energy from his body, so Uzumaki Nagato looked very weak at this time. Sitting in a wheelchair, he was thin and skinny, and even his face was bloodless. Nagato, your body? Xiaonan's worried voice sounded in the cave, and you could see a trace of sadness flashing in her eyes at this time. Konan, Nagato, and the dead Yahiko, the bond between the three of them is very deep. Now that Yahiko is dead, before their plan is completed, she doesn't want any accidents to happen to Nagato. Conan, I'm fine. A slightly hoarse voice came from Nagato's mouth, perhaps because he was afraid that Xiaonan would be worried. He tried his best to squeeze out a smile on his bloodless face. No matter what, I will definitely fulfill Yahiko's dream, Nagato secretly thought in his heart. No one can stop me, not even Zuanalo, but you. With this thought in his mind, Nagato's purple eyes flashed with a sharp light. Then he looked up at Xiaonan and said, the 6 paths just completed are not complete yet, and that Zuanalo is already coming here. You may need that guy to delay the other party for a while later. All 6 paths have been solved. A hint of surprise flashed in Xiaonan's eyes. She was very aware of Nagato's current strength. Although Pain's 6 paths has only just been completed, it already has a very strong combat power. Even if it faces several shadow level powerhouses at the same time, it is not chess playing point. But just like that, Pain Liu Deo Jingren, who had strong combat power, was defeated by Uzumaki Naraku. Xiaonan looked troubled. She knew who Pain was talking about, but she felt that the useless guy couldn't stop Naraku for too long. Even if she did it herself, it wouldn't make much difference. Xiaonan was a little confused for a moment. Don't think too much. There are others in the organization. Those 2 guys are nearby now. I have sent someone to notify them. They will be here soon. At this moment, Nagato's hoarse voice sounded in the cave again. After hearing this, the 2 familiar figures appeared in Xiaonan's mind. After thinking about the methods of those 2 people, her worried expression gradually relaxed. Xiaonan still has a certain degree of confidence in the strength of those 2 people. After all, one of them is a character who survived the first generation. He even threatened to fight against the first generation Hokage, and survived. As for the other person, although he is not very old, he masters a magic that is like immortality. Yes, the 2 guys near here in the Long Gate are Kakuzu and Hidden, who were known as the immortal duo in their previous life. However, despite the presence of these 2 people, Nagato is still somewhat worried. He has just spent a lot of power to create the 6 paths of pain. If he does not borrow the 6 paths demon statue, his body will not have much power. If Uzumaki Naraku really comes to him, even if he unleashes the power of the heretic demon, it will only be a lose-lose situation in the end. After a slight hesitation, Nagato decided to inform Obito about the matter and kill them. Nagato doesn't know much about the Obito today. He only knows that the opponent is a powerful ninja who calls himself Uchiha Madara. Even now, Nagato's plan to completely change the ninja world was influenced by Obito guidance. Among them, collecting tailed beasts to accumulate strength was what Obito revealed to him intentionally or unintentionally. It's just that Nagato didn't think much about these. All he wanted to do was fulfill Yahiko's unfinished wish and usher in true peace for the ninja world. In order to fulfill this wish, Nagato can sacrifice everything. Likewise, any obstacles that stand in the way of this wish will be ruthlessly cleared by him. Any obstacle. Although Nagato had doubts about Obito's pretended identity as Madara, he didn't ask too much. To him, Obito and Zetsu were just pawns that could be used. Then Nagato asked Conan to notify the nearby white Zetsu clone and inform him about Uzumaki Naraku's appearance here. At the same time, 3 figures appeared not far from Nagato and the others. They all wore large black robes, which were very similar to the clothes Xiaonan wore. There were red clouds printed on the black robes. The leader Jingren asked the 3 of us to go out at the same time. Some powerful enemy has appeared. A young man with silver hair that fell back and a pair of purple eyes said. The slightly lazy tone proved that the man was not too concerned about this matter. The man is Hidden, who believes in the evil god Nen and has immortality. Haha, maybe this time we can replace it with a stronger heart. At this time, a man on the side wore a black mask and a forehead protector that was scratched by the battle. It was Kakuzu. At this time, when he mentioned that he wanted to replace his heart, there was an expression of excitement on his face. Standing next to Kakuzu and Hidden was a somewhat thin young man. If there are people in the wood industry here, they will recognize at a glance that the young man in front of them looks very similar to the 3rd generation in his youth. Yes, this person is Sarutobi Kazuma. Nearly half a year had passed since Zetsu sent him to Nagato. Perhaps after 6 months of growth, Sarutobi Yiming now looks much more mature than before, and his eyes have lost their childishness and are full of indifference. Suddenly, the three of them seemed to sense something and suddenly raised their heads and looked forward. Chapter 242 looks like congratulations to you, Jiraiya. Just when Naraku set out for Uchiha village, Konoha village also received an uninvited guest. He has long white hair and 2 red spots on his forehead. Jiraiya frowned and looked at the white-haired boy in front of him. Although it was a bit unbelievable, he did feel the aura of the same person from the past in this person. Orochimaru, what are you doing back in the village? After a slight hesitation, Jiraiya decided to trust his intuition and asked in a cold voice. In response, Orochimaru, who was standing opposite him, raised the corners of his mouth slightly and sneered. Jiraiya, you seem to have changed a lot in the past few years. As he spoke, Orochimaru looked up carefully at the tall man in front of him. He has unruly long white hair and red paint on his face. Although Jiraiya's appearance has not changed much from a few years ago, Orochimaru is keenly aware that Jiraiya's mentality has changed now. Great changes. Jiraiya here did not speak when facing Orochimaru's question, but his tiger eyes trembled faintly, and his eyes were full of complexity. Normally speaking, Orochimaru in front of him is an S-class rebel nin of Konoha village. As a Jounin of Konoha, he should have arrested him as soon as he saw him, but Jiraiya did not do so. The reason why Jiraiya didn't take action directly was not only because he realized that Orochimaru's strength today was very different from before, but also because he didn't want the news of Orochimaru's appearance in Konoha village to be exposed. No one knows the current strength of Konoha village better than Jiraiya. Although Naraku and Kakashi are not in the village at this time, there are also many shadow level experts in the village. Needless to say, he and Tsunade were one of the 3 ninjas together with Orochimaru back then. Even though Orochimaru is now stronger than before, Jiraiya is confident. There was no way Orochimaru could defeat them both at the same time. What's more, they are not the only shadow level experts in Kimura at this time. The deputy minister of Anbu, Uchiha Shisu, and Uchiha Itachi, who is also a genius of the Uchiha clan like him. After Naraku's training, these 2 people have completely become shadow level powerhouses, especially the character Itachi. Although he is not old, he is no worse than Naraku and Kakashi in practicing Sky Thief, and he is extremely skilled in using his pair of Mangekyou Sharingan. Shisu once admitted personally that even he would find it difficult to defeat the current Itachi head-on. It can be said that in the entire Konoha village, and even in the entire ninja world, Naraku is the only person of his age who can transcend the Axis. As for Kakashi, if he were to fight Itachi at the same age, he would be able to compete with him at best, but not surpass him. To cage level geniuses from the Uchiha clan, plus the Konoha Blue Beast, Metke, who had just returned from a mission. Jiraiya felt that he and Tsunagan didn't even need to take action. Just relying on Itachi and the others, it was enough to defeat Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru. At this moment, a slightly childish voice came from behind Orochimaru, and then Jiraiya and Orochimaru looked at the same time. A boy wearing glasses appeared in their sight. The boy was not very old. He looked only a year or 2 younger than Itachi and the others. Lord Orochimaru. They knew each other before, Jiraiya secretly thought to himself, and then he looked at Orochimaru and the boy behind him who walked out of Konoha hospital with vigilant eyes. Kabuto, you're here at this moment, Orochimaru spoke. In fact, the reason why he came to Konoha village today was to pick up Kabuto. He had wanted to come a long time ago, but it was only delayed for a long time due to some things. Kabuto was a talent that Orochimaru had discovered a long time ago. Orochimaru decided to take Kabuto away this time. He wanted to train Kabuto to be his assistant, an excellent assistant. He himself was not discovered by anyone after he came to Konoha village. Just to notify Kabuto that he left some special marks near Konoha hospital. Those marks are only detectable by those who know him well. But what Orochimaru didn't expect was that those marks were not notified to Kabuto first, but were discovered by Jiraiya in front of him first. After Kabuto came here, Orochimaru took a step back and stood with Kabuto. He wanted to leave here directly with Kabuto. Just as Jiraiya thought, there are indeed many strong people in Konoha village today. Even though his own strength has improved greatly compared to before, Orochimaru still dare not take risks easily. Now he just wants to conduct his own research with peace of mind. Before the results of the research come out, he does not want to have a major conflict with any force in the ninja world, especially Konoha village. For this village, where he grew up, and for which he had shed countless blood, Orochimaru could not completely let go of it in his heart. There was also the bond between him, Jiraiya, and Tsunade. How could they just forget about it? So Orochimaru didn't want to have a direct conflict with Konoha village, and his purpose was just to take Kabuto away. Now that Kabuto has come to him, then there is no need for him to stay in the village anymore. Orochimaru, just. When Orochimaru put his hand on Kabuto's shoulder, and was about to use reverse channeling to leave, a heavy female voice sounded in his ears. Orochimaru frowned when he heard this voice, and then he raised his head slightly, only to see a familiar figure appear in his sight. The tea-green coat, long pale blonde hair, seductive pear-shaped figure, and the pair of huge objects in front of her make it difficult to take your eyes away. Just like Jiraiya at this time, he lowered his head slightly and saw the pair of indescribable things. Sensing the unusual gaze, Tsunade had a look of helplessness on her face, and then she clenched her fist and punched it out. Damn Jiraiya, don't you even look at the occasion, Tsunade cursed after punching out. Boom. There was a loud noise, and Jiraiya's body was seen taking a few steps back. Although he was beaten and scolded, Jiraiya's face was full of smiles at this time, as if he enjoyed Tsunade's beatings and scoldings. This scene really feels very familiar. Orochimaru, in front, murmured softly when he saw this scene. Jiraiya, it looks like I have to congratulate you, idiot. Orochimaru secretly thought in his heart. As the person who was most familiar with these two people, he naturally saw the relationship between Jiraiya and Tsunade at a glance. As a friend, Orochimaru was happy that the two of them had come this far. Jiraiya, it seems you have completed your pursuit. Chapter 243. You two, don't let me down. In Konoha village, in the clan of the Senju clan, Jiraiya and Tsunade stepped into the clan territory together. Among them, Jiraiya's face was a little ugly. It could be seen that his clothes were messy at this time, and his long flowing white hair was also stained with some dirt. Jiraiya did not expect Orochimaru's strength to grow so fast, and he even possessed and mastered the blood succession limit, the corpse pulse, which was once famous in Kirigakure village. Just now, he and Tsunade joined forces and a not so fierce battle broke out with Orochimaru. Although Jiraiya and Tsunade joined forces and had a numerical advantage, they did not achieve any good results. Orochimaru easily took over their moves. After a few simple tricks, the opponent fled Konoha village directly. Although Jiraiya and Tsunade did not fight with all their strength, there is no doubt that Orochimaru was able to escape easily in their hands, which proved that his strength was far beyond what he used to be. Jiraiya was a little depressed for a moment. What if we use immortal mode? Jiraiya murmured, wondering if he could defeat Orochimaru if he used sage mode. But after careful consideration, Jiraiya came to a negative answer in his mind. The power of the corpse veins and the forbidden techniques Orochimaru himself mastered, so even if he turned on the sage mode, he was not sure that he could defeat the opponent. For a moment, Jiraiya felt a little frustrated. He was also one of the three ninjas. Although Orochimaru had always been stronger, Jiraiya never thought that he was inferior to him. There was even a time when Jiraiya felt that his strength had surpassed that of Orochimaru. But what he didn't expect was that Orochimaru's strength now far exceeded him. However, while Jiraiya felt frustrated, he also felt a desire not to lose. It seems that I have to practice hard. After all, I'm Toad Sennin, one of the three ninjas. With this thought in his mind, Jiraiya directly greeted Tsunade and rushed towards the training ground behind the clan. The appearance of Orochimaru today made Jiraiya realize a problem. That is, he could not relax too much. Today's ninja world seems calm, but in fact it is just the calm before the storm. Although Konoha has geniuses like Naraku, Kakashi, Uchiha and others, it is impossible for Jiraiya to transfer all the pressure to these younger generations. Now that he has decided to do something with Tsunade, Jiraiya will do his best to complete these things completely and bring true peace to the next generation. Jiraiya, you really are. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya's leaving figure with a look of helplessness on her face. However, as the person who knew Jiraiya best, Tsunade did not stop him. In fact, she also realized that her current strength was not enough. However, Tsunade knows that compared to improving her strength, she has a more important thing to do now, and that is to be a successful leader. What she is going to do now is unprecedented and extremely rare in the 1000-year history of the ninja world. Perhaps strong strength is very important, but Tsunade knows that her own will is more important. Moreover, with her strong strength, she already has a goal in her heart. Even if she does reach that point in the future, if her strength is not enough to convince the public, then someone with the same will as she will step forward. Uzumaki Naraku, Kakashi, you too, don't let me down. Tsunade thought in her mind. Mother-in-law, you are back. At this moment, a cheerful male voice sounded in Tsunade's ears. Hokage-sama, a gentle male voice spoke together. Tsunade looked up and saw a boy with short blonde hair and 6 long black beards on his face appearing in her sight. The boy was Naruto, and standing next to him was a handsome young man. It's white. At this time, Shiro was wearing the attire of a Konoha genin, with a forehead protector exclusive to the Konoha village on his face. Yes, Bei had graduated early and officially became a real ninja at this time, and had even completed several tasks outstandingly. His excellent talents have begun to emerge, and even the Ice Escape blood succession limit white has begun to gradually gain mastery. As for where the dry ice escape ninjutsu came from, Naraku directly asked Kakashi to go to Kirigakure village and ask for it face to face with their 5th Mizukage. Although the Minazuki clan has been exterminated, there are still many records about their clan's secret skills in Kirigakure. Terumi Mei didn't hide anything about this. After hearing that there was a descendant of the Minazuki clan in their Zei village, she very generously copied a copy of the secrets of the Minazuki clan to Kakashi. He also sent someone to send a message to Tsunade, saying that he wanted Shiro to return to Kirigakure village. Tsunade refused without thinking. Seeing these two people, Tsunade had a smile on her face. After so many years of getting along, Tsunade, Naruto, and Shiro had established a deep relationship. The naughty Naruto and the sweet-natured Shiro are both people that Tsunade is extremely friendly with. After chatting with Naruto and Shiro for a while, Kushina's figure also appeared in the clan. Sister Tsunade, why are you back so early today? Kushina frowned slightly and looked at Tsunade in front of her. She was a little strange. Under normal circumstances, Tsunade, as the Hokage, is very busy with her affairs. Often it would be a while after she, the director of Konoha Hospital, returned home before Tsunade and Jiraiya came back. I have nothing to do today, so I came back earlier. Tsunade stood up, raised her arms and stretched, then smiled and said to Kushina, "Oh, that's it." Kushina didn't think too much about this. After simply cleaning up, she went straight to the kitchen. Now that I'm back, let my sister try my cooking skills. I've learned another dish recently. It is good." Tsunade smiled and nodded. Then just when Kushina was about to cook, Shizune also came here. Then 4 adults and 2 children, a total of 6 people, had a pretty good dinner together. By the way, I went to the hospital today and found a child who was very talented in medical ninjutsu. After the meal, Kushina seemed to have thought of something and turned to Tsunade beside her and said, "Although he is not old now, his chakra control has reached a certain level. You have to know that in the village, there are even some chunin who have not yet reached that level. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 244 Obito's New Sharingan. In the land of the Thousand Hands clan, after listening to Kushina's words, Tsunade had a complicated look on her face. She knew who the person Kushina was talking about was the boy Orochimaru took away during the day. Kabuto Yakushi is the adopted son of the director of Konoha Hospital before Kushina. Tsunade also felt a pity for losing such a talented person, but she had no good solution. Even if she forced Kabuto to stay in the village, it would be useless, because the other party has been successfully brainwashed by Orochimaru. Tsunade also knew her former companion very well. Apart from anything else, Orochimaru definitely had his own unique personality charm when it came to winning people's hearts. Anyone who recognizes Orochimaru will never betray him again. Just like Tsunade's own brother, Naoki, when he was a disciple of Orochimaru, he listened to his teacher even more than his sister. It was precisely because Tsunade knew that Kabuto already recognized Orochimaru in her heart that she and Jiraiya allowed Orochimaru to take each other away. Although it was a pity that Tsunade finally told Kushina about Kabuto. He was taken away by Orochimaru. I hope he can find his own path. A remote island in the Kingdom of Water. This is an island on the sea point. Because of its remote location, few people appear on this island point. In a dark cave on the island, 2 scarlet rays of light suddenly rose in the cave that was originally dark due to the lack of sunlight point. If you look closely enough, you will find that the scarlet light is actually 2 orangutans. It has red eyes, and there is a black triangular pinwheel pattern inside the scarlet eyeball point. It is the main Gekkai Sharingan, but at this time, the black triangular windmill was spinning rapidly, and at the same time, a powerful pupil power emanated from the scarlet eyes. Then the black triangular windmill visible to the naked eye finally transformed into a black circle, and within the circle there were 3 knife-shaped patterns like crescent moons. After a long time, as the man slowly closed his eyes, the scarlet light disappeared instantly. "Ju, you're here." A hoarse voice sounded in the cave, and then a figure was seen walking out of the cave. A large black robe covered his body, and he wore an orange tiger print mask on his head. It was Obito. "Haha, it seems you have succeeded." A voice of laughter sounded, and a body shrouded by a giant pitcher plant slowly emerged from the ground. Under the pitcher plant was a strange body, one black and one white. Zetsu looked at Obito in front of him with curious eyes. With his strong perception, he had already noticed that Obito was completely different from before. He had undergone a qualitative transformation in both eye power and chakra. Notify Nagato that the plan can start in advance. Without answering Zetsu, a cold and ruthless voice came from Obito's mouth. "Plans are ahead of schedule. It seems you can't wait any longer." Ju opened his mouth and showed a smile, but then he straightened his face and said, "But before the plan starts, you may need to go to the Rain Ninja village. Just now." Nagato sent a message and Naraku Yodozu appeared in the Rain Ninja village point and solved the 6 paths of birth that he had just completed. Now he's asking us for help. Uzumaki Naraku appeared in the Rain Ninja village. Obito's expression changed slightly when he heard this, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Although Obito didn't have many fights with Uzumaki Naraku, he could feel that the opponent was a transcendent genius. However, even when Naraku became blind later, Obito never looked down upon him. Although Yodafuki Naraku is very talented, his strength has dropped greatly since his eyes have been disabled. Normally, Nagato, who has the Rinnegan, cannot be his opponent. Pen 6 paths, you are really a waste, Obito thought to himself, with a hint of disdain on his face. Although Nagato's performance this time is a bit disappointing, the follow-up plan still requires his power in those eyes, so we must stop Uzumaki Naraku this time. Perhaps because he was worried that Obito wouldn't take action, Zetsu reminded him again. After hearing Zetsu's words, Obito's face changed slightly under his mask. It's absolutely true that, although Nagato's performance is a bit disappointing, at present, the next series of plans still require Nagato's assistance. I hope you won't disappoint me too much, otherwise I wouldn't mind borrowing those eyes, Obito said, and then his scarlet eyes appeared. The originally stable space suddenly trembled, and then a space vortex appeared on Obito's body, and the next moment his body disappeared. Zeha. Obito, I hope we can continue to cooperate, otherwise. After the leader left, a cold light showed on Ju's face, who stayed where he was. As the leader's strength continued to increase, Ju felt a sense of being unable to control the other party, especially Heize. His thoughts are deeper, and he has more plans. However, after thinking about Madara's last hand, both Black Zetsu and White Zetsu felt relieved. With that hand, even if Obito is powerful, they can firmly control the opponent. Suddenly, Juju seemed to sense something, and her face changed slightly. That guy Kakashi, after being dormant for more than half a year, he appeared in Kirigakure village again. Thinking this in his mind, he quickly dived under the ground and left here. You are obviously a ninja from Konoha village. Why do you always like to run to Kirigakure village when you have nothing to do? After leaving here, Ju couldn't help but complain in his heart. Wish. Just after Ju left the island, a figure appeared outside the cave point with long silver hair, a black mask, and a somewhat slender figure. The person who came was none other than the Kakashi whom Jutsu had mentioned. Kakashi ended his training at about the same time as Naraku, but unlike Naraku, he received the mission from Tsunade as soon as he returned to the village. That is to find the masked man still hiding in the Kingdom of Water, and kill or expel them from the Kingdom of Water. As for the 1000th masked man, Obito, although he is not very active now, someone still found traces of him in the Kingdom of Water, and reported it to the 5th Mizukage. Terumi Mei also feels powerless about this. Although she now sits on the position of Mizukage, the current Kirigakure village has been secretly targeted by Obito for several years, and most of the blood successor families have been destroyed by it. Today's Kirigakure village's strength has declined very seriously. Compared with Sunagakure village, it is not far behind. In other words, there is only one more shadow level powerhouse like her. Chapter 245. I want to follow in the footsteps of Lord Orochimaru. Terumi Mei knew very well that the Kirigakure village alone could not fight the masked man with its own strength, and she did not even dare to send people to find him, because she knew that with the strength of the masked man, no matter who she sent from Hidden Herself Mist village, there would only be one end after meeting the masked man, and that was death. Even Terumi Mei can't guarantee that she is a match for the masked man. So in this case, Terumi Mei could only ask for help from Konoha, and the person sent by Konoha village was Kakashi. In fact, not only Terumi Mei was worried about the strength of the masked man, but Tsunade was also worried. Although I don't want to admit it, time and space ninjutsu is indeed very difficult. Although there are many masters in Konoha village, the only ones who can truly compete with the masked man are Kakashi and Naraku, who also master the time and space ninjutsu. Point among them, Kakashi's advantage is even more obvious than Naraku. After all, Kakashi now masters both the Flying Thunder God Jutsu and Kamu, both time and space ninjutsu. Kakashi is undoubtedly the best candidate to deal with the masked man disguised as Obito. That's why Tsunade sent him to support Kirigakure village. Did you just leave here? Kakashi stepped into the cave, where he felt a strange yet familiar atmosphere. After searching around, Kakashi left here in a flash. He was ready to continue tracking Obito. In fact, this time even if Kirigakure did not ask Konoha for help, Kakashi was ready to make suggestions to Tsunade. He was ready to make a complete end with Obito. A desolate place outside Sunagakure village. Under this desolate ground is a fully equipped advanced laboratory, which is Orochimaru's laboratory. At this time, Orochimaru had brought Kabuto back here. After briefly explaining things to Kabuto, he couldn't wait to start the experiment. Orochimaru can be seen lying on a bed at this time, with a white cloth covering his eyes. Kabuto, who was wearing glasses on the side, was doing some auxiliary work. You could see that he was inserting tiny needles into Orochimaru's body one after another. At the other end of the needle tube are bottles of red liquid. Lord Orochimaru, this is really a great experiment. Looking at Orochimaru lying on the bed, a flash of madness flashed in Kabuto's eyes. Master, Orochimaru is conducting some weird experiments again. In the next room, a woman with red hair and glasses murmured. The girl is Uzumaki Koro. You can see that she has a small needle stuck in her arm at this time, and the other end of the needle is a glass container. Red blood continued to flow out of her body, and flowed into the glass container along the needle. Even though she is a pure Uzumaki clan bloodline, she is pale and looks very weak at this time. Perhaps because she is too young, or because too much blood has been extracted from her body. Squeak. After an unknown amount of time, just when the red blood was about to fill the glass container, the door to the room was pushed open and someone walked in. You can see that Kabuto is still holding an empty glass container in his hand at this time. After changing the container, Kabuto glanced down at the pale Karen and said, "Hold on, Orochimaru-sama only needs one bottle of blood." After saying that, he walked out of the room with a glass container filled with phosphorus blood. Only the pale phosphorus was left there. Haha, hold on a little longer. After all, the blood of the Uzumaki clan is rare. Kabuto, who walked out of the room on the other side, took out a cork to seal the glass container, and then placed it in a hidden place. In fact, Orochimaru's experiment this time did not use the blood of phosphorus. Orochimaru just asked Kabuto to get some as a spare point. As for why Kabuto carried Orochimaru behind his back to collect the blood of the Uzumaki clan, Kabuto had his own selfish motives. Growing up in Konoha Hospital, he had often seen Uzumaki Naraku since childhood, especially during the years when Kushina was in a coma, when Naraku settled directly in Konoha Hospital. So from another perspective, the young Kabuto witnessed Naraku's rise. The tailed beast can survive being pulled out of its body, so let me see how powerful the Uzumaki clan's physique is. Kabuto secretly thought in his heart. Because of the relationship between Naraku and Kushina, Kabuto is now very curious about the Edozu clan. Even when he approached Kushina at Konoha Hospital, it was just to better study the physique of the Uzumaki clan, but his strength was too weak. Even if he got close to Kushina, he did not dare to do anything. But it's different now. Kabuto originally just thought that he could learn more knowledge and conduct more experiments by following Orochimaru. He did not expect that Orochimaru would have already made person with the blood of the Uzumaki clan. This discovery excited Kabuto. In some ways, Kabuto and Orochimaru have a lot in common. Although Kabuto is not very old now, because he was influenced by Orochimaru when he was young, he is full of intellectual curiosity. For various experiments and research, especially this time, Kabuto saw Orochimaru changing his body with his own eyes, and he realized in his heart that Orochimaru might truly pursue eternal life. Orochimaru's success stimulated Kabuto even more. I want to follow in Orochimaru-sama's footsteps and become a person like him, Kabuto whispered in his mouth. Then he walked into a room and began to conduct some experiments based on the information Orochimaru gave him. You are already interested in the Uzumaki clan's bloodline, Kabuto. Orochimaru, who was lying on the hospital bed, thought to himself, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised into a sneer. The Uzumaki clan, the Senju clan, the Uchiha clan, haha, I have seen through everything, Kabuto. I hope you won't disappoint me. Well, suddenly, a cry of pain came from Orochimaru's mouth, and then a powerful energy burst out from his body. Countless white bones were seen emerging from his body, but in the blink of an eye Orochimaru's body was wrapped in countless white bones. From a distance, he looked like a hedgehog with white barbs. Lord Orochimaru. Kabuto on the other side noticed the movement and wanted to come in to check the situation, but he was blocked by a huge white bone snake. Looking at the white bone snake standing in front of him, Kabuto's eyes flashed with worry. However, he also knew that the white bone snake was originally controlled by Orochimaru. He knew that Orochimaru did not want people to disturb him. After staying at the door for a while, Kabuto returned to Sei's laboratory. Chapter 246 Sarutobi Arumi is frightened. Near Uninja village, Kakuzu, Hidden and Sarutobi Ikume. Naraku turned his head and looked at the three figures in front of him and spoke out their identities. Naraku was still a little surprised by the appearance of these three people, especially Sarutobi Kazumi. Looking at the familiar decoration on the opponent's body, Naraku did not expect that Sarutobi Yiming would join Akatsuki. This was a bit beyond his expectation, but then Naraku thought about Danzo, who was colluding with the leader Zetsu, and he figured it out. Nagato and Obito were already on the same team, so it was not surprising that Ichimai Sarutobi joined Akatsuki. I wonder where that old guy went? Naraku secretly thought to himself. When he saw Sarutobi scream, he thought of the third generation who looked very similar to him. Since the last battle at the border of the Land of Wind, the third generation has not appeared in the ninja world for a long time. Tsunade has also sent people to search for the whereabouts of the third generation, but without exception, they have found nothing. Naraku guessed that the third generation was hiding in the psychic world. It's him, Uzumaki Naraku. At this moment, Sarutobi Yiming also recognized Naraku's identity. Almost instantly, his originally indifferent face suddenly changed, and a look of fear appeared on his face. Looking at the familiar red-haired figure in front of him, the border of the Kingdom of Wind appeared in his mind. Sarutobi Yiming thought of the scene when he was raped by Naraku. Boomed. Next moment, a powerful energy burst out from Sarutobi Yiming's body. Gudu. Goo. Liquid like dark red energy surged out from his body crazily and then wrapped his body tightly. 5 tails formed by dark red energy kept swaying behind him. What are you doing? A sudden burst of chakra. Do you want to die? At this moment, a scolding sound came from the side, and it was Hidden who spoke. At this time, he was looking at Sarutobi Ichiji with an angry face, his purple eyes full of anger. Hidden himself couldn't stand Sarutobi Yiming. In his opinion, he was just a loser who possessed a tailed beast by relying on his body point. Therefore, Hidden often came to him to practice his skills whenever he had nothing to do. Of course, every time he would end up with Sarutobi Kazuma begging for mercy point. Just when Hidden Huobi opened his mouth to scold him again, an unexpected expression appeared on his face point. At this time, I saw Sarutobi Yiming, who was wearing a tailed beast's coat, making an astonishing move. I saw that he did not launch an offensive towards Naraku in front of him. On the contrary, he kicked his feet on the ground and moved towards him at a very high speed. Spread behind point in a matter of seconds, he had already put some distance between himself and Hidden and Kakuzu. Reverse psychic technique. Just keeping the distance was not enough. Sarutobi Yiming wanted to do more than that. After quickly forming seals with his hands, he let out a low drink from his mouth point. At this time, Naraku in front also noticed Sarutobi Yiming's movements. After a slight hesitation, he gave up the idea of blocking the opponent point in his eyes. Sarutobi Yiming is just the 6 tails Jinchuriki. When the 6 tails is needed, it will not be too late to deal with him point. Boom. At this moment, Sarutobi, who was wearing a tailed beast's coat, turned into a burst of white smoke and disappeared here point. He used reverse channeling to escape point. In fact, the reason why Sarutobi Yiming was so afraid of Naraku was related to the fact that he was easily defeated by the opponent at the border of the Kingdom of Wind last time. But more importantly, he noticed that Naraku's eyes had recovered. He knew that Naraku had the blood of the Uchiha clan. He had no doubt that Naraku, who had recovered his eyes, once again had the power of the Sharingan and the main Gekkai Sharingan point. Danzo once told him about Naraku Manka's abbreviated Rinnegan's ability point. Sarutobi Yiming knew that if it was Naraku who was blind, although he would be defeated, he might still have hope of escaping. But if it was Naraku who had the main Gekkai Sharingan point, he knew that if he was a step too late, he would not be able to escape. What a loser. Hidden's disdainful voice sounded on the field at this moment. I don't know why the leader would send such a person to fight with us. It's better to imprison it directly or extract the tailed beast from its body. Hidden started to complain. He was starting to look down on Sarutobi Kazuma more and more. But compared to the young and energetic Hidden, Kakuto with 5 hearts has more on his mind point. He looked at the red-haired boy in front of him with cautious eyes. Although Hidden has always called Sarutobi Kazuma a waste, Kakuzu knows very well that this waste also has the strength of a strong cage level person. Even though it is the weakest cage level, it is still a cage level point. It can directly scare away a shadow level strongman. But what kind of strength does the young man in front of him possess? At this time, Kakuzu also suddenly reacted. How could Pain suddenly ask them to come here to stop this young man's actions? Why didn't he do it himself? Could it be that Pain is already there? A bold idea grew in Kakuzu's heart, and his expression changed slightly when he thought of this. Fly. Just when he was about to say something, a figure flashed in front of him. It was Hidden point. At this moment, Hidden was seen holding a red 3-stage scythe point. The Bloody March scythe has a telescopic function. The bottom of the scythe is connected by a rope. The other end of the rope is wrapped around Hidden's waist. With the help of the rope, Hidden can throw the scythe to attack the enemy. Just like now, Hidden stretched out his right hand and then violently threw the sickle in his hand forward, targeting Naraku. Kai. The scythe tore through the air and blasted straight towards Naraku in front of him. Naturally, Naraku would not sit still and wait for death in the face of Hidden's attack point. Call out. Call out. In an instant, 2 thick golden chains protruded from his back and rushed forward point. Clang. Clang. The next moment, the golden chain and the sickle collided, almost touching. In an instant, the chain bounced the scythe away. Hidden, you're the guy who got immortality with the help of the evil god's curse. Naraku turned his head and looked at the ferocious looking Hidden in front of him and gave a low cry. He sensed a very evil force in Hidden's body. Naraku knew Hidden and Kakuzu very well, and was very aware of their methods, especially Hidden. Naraku was very interested in his immortality in his previous life point. In fact, he knew that Hidden's body was not immortal in the true sense. He just had a body that was not afraid of any harm, and his body could quickly recover from injuries. What Naraku learned was that Hidden was taken away by a group of believers called the God Cult and underwent some special experiments before he had his current body point, and Hidden was the only living being to survive the experiment. Chapter 247. It's really an interesting secret skill. Clang, clang, the sound of metal colliding constantly sounded on the field. At this time, 3 thick golden chains could be seen continuously launching attacks towards Hidden, who was holding the bloody third stage scythe point as the battle between the two began. Hidden had realized already something. He looked up at Naraku in front of him, and a look of surprise flashed across his ferocious face. Although Hidden usually seems to be an impatient and talkative person who does things without thinking, in fact, he can see some things even with his cage level strength. For Kain Fiden himself, he knew his methods very well. It can be said that all Hidden's attacks are just to get the enemy's blood. As long as he gets the blood, he can activate the spell. The death depends on the blood, so the victory or defeat is already decided. Ever since he obtained immortality from the evil god cult, Hidden's battles have basically followed a routine, relying on his immortality. Among the enemies he has encountered in the past, almost no one can dodge his attacks. Even his enemies who are slightly stronger than him will be tricked by him using spells, and they will be tricked to death, based on their blood point. But today he knew that he had met a real opponent. Although Naraku had not yet made a full attack, Hidden had already felt a pressure. Immortality, that's it. Compared to Gan Hidden's shock, Naraku felt a little disappointed at this moment. Looking at the figure in front of him who was constantly waving the scythe in his hand, a trace of imperceptible disdain flashed in Naraku's eyes. In his opinion, the strength Hidden displayed now was at most equivalent to that of an elite Jounin point. This is indeed the case. Apart from his immortal body in those few spells, Hidden himself did not master any ninjutsu. This is why he can only rely on taijutsu to fight Naraku point. However, in Naraku's eyes, Hidden's level of taijutsu was not even half of gaze. If we put aside the spells that Hidden mastered and his immortality, his strength may not even reach the cage level, and he can only be regarded as an elite jounin at best point. However, although Hidden's strength was not strong, Naraku was still not careless. With Kaguya's inner eye open, his perception covered the entire area. Not only Hidden in front of him, but also Kakuzu behind him. She was present in every move within his perception point. Besides Hidden, there was also an old guy present. Kakuzu is a character from the first generation period. It is rumored that he fought against the first generation and survived point. Although Naraku didn't believe this statement, he didn't let down his guard against his opponent. After all, it wouldn't be fun if the opponent got a drop of his blood from a sneak attack. Vajra Chain, a member of the Uzumaki clan. At this time, Kakuzu, who was standing behind Hidden, had a gloomy expression on his face. He had already noticed that Naraku's strength was extraordinary, and he was not ready to take action. But now that Hidden had taken action, even if he didn't want to, he couldn't point. After all, he and Hidden are companions now. If Kakuzu turns around and runs away, he is afraid that pain will hold him responsible later. After all, he is also very afraid of those eyes that are like gods. If that's the case, let's do it. Kakuzu secretly thought to himself, then picked up his hands and began to quickly form seals, wind release, pressure. After a secret shout, Kakuzu opened his mouth and fired a high pressure wind ball. The wind ball spun rapidly and then formed a bursting storm that rushed towards Naraku in front of one. Naraku noticed his movements immediately. The power of his pupils was concentrated, and the next moment Liu scarlet eyes appeared, with golden six-pointed star patterns shining with dazzling golden light in his eyes. Sasano, Naraku secretly thought in his heart, and then his pupil power and chakra burst out of the hole. In an instant, the golden light on his body surged, and a golden skeleton giant appeared, and completely enveloped Naraku's body point. The golden Susanoo in the form of Karastengu is wearing armor, and holding a golden sword in each hand. He looks very imposing. Boom. The violent scroll released by Kakuzu on the other side fell directly on the golden Susan, but a shocking scene appeared. I saw the golden whiskers flashing, and the violent roll falling on it only caused a ripple of energy. This is Kakuzu's expression was ugly at this time, and he looked at the tall golden Susanoo in front of him in disbelief. As an old antique who survived the first generation, he was lucky enough to see the dance of the ninja Shura. The golden Susanoo, who was more than 10 meters tall in front of him, although he was far behind the giant, who was hundreds of meters tall, still gave people a strong sense of oppression. Kakuzu's expression turned ugly. He knew that he and Hidden had encountered a truly difficult opponent this time. The immortal duo. Let me see how you can survive today. Just then a cold voice came, and it was Naraku who spoke. Hearing the sound, Kakuzu turned his head and looked at the young figure wrapped in golden Susanoo, just when he was about to find a chance to escape. Black flame thunder. A low shout came from Naraku's mouth, and then powerful pupil power burst out from his right eye, and a line of blood and tears flowed out of his right eye. At the same time, Kakuzu's alarm suddenly sounded, and a strong uneasiness arose in his heart. The next moment, a jet black flame suddenly appeared on his body, and there seemed to be streaks of black thunder swelling inside the pitch black flame. The moment the flame appeared, Kakuzu felt a strong burning sensation and numbness. Without any hesitation, he picked up his hands and began to form seals quickly. Secret technique, Earth Resentment. After a low drink, black lines were seen protruding from the ground, and then formed a dark arm to grab at the black flames on his body. Earth Resentment is a special secret technique that Kakuzu has mastered. It is precisely because of this secret technique that he can steal the hearts of others to extend his life. Laugh. Suddenly, a burst of black smoke rose, and the arm formed by black lines was instantly burned when it encountered the black flame, turning into a burst of black smoke and floating into the air. Seeing this scene, Kakuzu's face was as gloomy as water. After a slight hesitation, determination appeared in his eyes. Then I saw countless black threads emerging from the ground and wrapping his body, and then a scene that made people feel scalp numb appeared. A mask appeared on Kakuzu's face, which was completely wrapped by the threads. It looked like a monster. Same point, but this was not the end. 4 identical monsters were seen separated from his body. These monsters were all wrapped in black lines and all wore masks. 5 surviving hearts at the same time is really an interesting secret skill. Chapter 248. This seems a little cruel. On the field, facing the offensive of the black flames released by Naraku, Kakuzu finally sacrificed a heart. It can be seen that there are only 4 black monsters left on the field at this time, and 1 monster has been burned by the black flame thunder and turned into ashes at this time. There was still a large area of black thunder on the ground. Crack. Crack. The black thunder burned the ground and made a crackling sound. The 4 monsters transformed from Kakuzu looked at the black flames on the ground with a trace of fear in their eyes. The ever-extinguishing black flame thunder has left a deep impression on his heart. We must find a way to retreat as soon as possible, Kakuzu secretly thought to himself, and then the 4 monsters moved at the same time. Water. Escape. Water curtain. Fire. Escape. Hard on the head. Earth. Escape. Earth spear. The next moment, 3 black monsters made moves at the same time. Crack. Crack. The roar of thunder and lightning sounded, and a black monster opened its mouth and spit out a ball of blue thunder and lightning. The dense thunder and lightning formed a thunder spear in front of it. Stab it. The thunder spear tore through the air and rushed forward, along with a large sea-like red flame and a powerful water column. The thunder spear, the red flame, and the water column all rushed towards the golden Susanoo. Kakuzu, who masters the power of earthly resentment, has a total of 5 hearts in his body, and the 5 hearts correspond to the 5 types of chakra. With this method, Kakuzu can be regarded as mastering the changes of the 5 attributes of chakra. Boom. At this moment, a loud noise came, and the thunder spear, red flames and water pillars all fell on the golden Susan, and the collision between the 2 produced a huge impact. Faced with several ninjutsu attacks, golden Susanoo did not retreat at all, and golden Susanoo chose to resist head-on. For a moment, the golden light on the field shook, and the huge golden whiskers trembled slightly, but in the end they completely withstood the attack. But at this moment, Naraku's pupils shrank, and he could see that in his sight, there was a black shadow flashing across, running rapidly towards the distance. Naraku recognized that the black shadow was one of the black monsters that Kakuzu had just separated. Haha, I can't just let you run away like this. Naraku raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and a sneer appeared on his face. Swish. The next moment, his figure flickered slightly, and Naraku disappeared instantly. When he appeared, he was already in front of the black shadow. This is how can it be? Kakuzu, whose body was wrapped in black lines, looked at the red-haired figure in front of him, with a trace of fear in his eyes. Could it be a time and space ninjutsu? Kakuzu secretly thought in his heart. He thought of the existence of the person who called himself Madara Uchiha, who originally pulled him to join the Akatsuki organization. At that time, that person's method was time and space ninjutsu. However, Naraku didn't give him much time to think. At this time point, Naraku stretched out his right hand, and the next moment a violent energy was released from his right hand. Crack. Crack. A dense blue electric arc appeared on his right hand. Naraku used his palm as a knife and slashed straight towards the horns in front of him. Guy. The right hand wrapped in thunder and lightning turned into a thunder and lightning sword light, which tore through the air and fell directly on Kakuzu's body. Crackling. Crackling. Almost instantly, the sound of thunder and lightning exploded. At this time, Kakuzu's body was covered with blue thunder and lightning. After a while, a burning smell came from his body, and at the same time, the body slowly fell to the ground. Only 3 left. Naraku waved his hand and gave a low sucking sound in his mouth. Then he raised his head and his eyes fell on the 3 black figures in front of him. Except for the one that was burned to death by black flame thunder before, there were only 3 hearts left in Kakuzu's 5 at this time. On the other side, Golden Susanoo also launched a fierce attack on Hidden. Each of his hands was seen holding a golden sword, and then he began to swing it quickly. Basically every time he swung, a huge golden sword appeared and struck Hidden. Ha 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 ha. At this time, Hidden was laughing ferociously. Maybe the Golden Susanoo had stimulated his nerves, and he looked a little abnormal now. He was seen holding 3 bloody scythes in his hand, constantly waving them in front, hoping to resist the attack of the golden sword light. But it was obvious that he overestimated himself. Boom. The moment the golden sword light collided with the 3 bloody scythes, Hidden felt a huge force in his hand. His mouth was numb from the shock and he even let go of the 3 bloody scythes in his hand. Kai. Just after the bloody 3 swords were knocked away, several more golden sword lights ripped through the air and came to the front of Hidden. Hidden felt a dazzling golden light appear in front of his eyes, making it difficult to open his eyes. Buff. The next moment, a bright red blood splashed out, and Hidden felt a pain all over his body. He looked down at his abdomen and saw a hideous wound there, with red blood flowing out smoothly. The appearance of severe pain did not make Hidden lose his fighting spirit. On the contrary, he became completely excited at this time. A look of madness appeared on his face, and then he looked up at the tall Golden Susanoo in front of him. Haha, it's really a powerful existence. A maniacal laugh came from Hidden's mouth, and then he kicked his feet to the ground, and Hidden prepared to attack at close range with Golden Susanoo. Kai. But the next moment, a sound broke through the air, and several more golden sword lights appeared in front of Hidden. Without any delay, the golden sword light fell on Hidden again. Ah. Screams came from Hidden's mouth. Although Hidden had an immortal body, he could still feel pain. However, Golden Susanoo would not stop swinging his sword, just because of his shout. It could be seen that the tall Golden Susanoo was still waving the golden giant sword in his hand. In an instant, dozens of golden sword lights engulfed Hidden's body. Puff. A stream of bright red blood splashed. This seems a little cruel. Naraku, who was not far away, looked up at the scene in front of him and couldn't help but let out a soft suck in his mouth. But the next moment, a sharp light appeared on his face. Naraku had no sympathy for a guy like Hidden who was taught by the evil god. Compared to these methods, Naraku knew that Hidden had done more harmful things as the messenger of the evil god. He does not deserve anyone's mercy. Under Naraku's control, the Golden Susanoo kept waving the golden giant sword in his hand, and for a while the field was filled with Hidden screams. Chapter 249. What a pity. Hidden. The expressions of the remaining 3 black monsters changed after seeing Hidden's miserable condition. Because they are both the heart of Kakuzu, they all have Kakuzu's consciousness. From another perspective, it can also be said that Kakuzu has 5 lives. It can be seen that the faces of these 3 black monsters are frightened at this time, and Naraku's strength far exceeds his imagination. After all, Kakuzu is not afraid of any attack like hidden. If his 3 hearts are damaged, it will mean his real death point. For a moment, Kakuzu felt a sense of fear in his heart point. The longer a person lives, the more afraid he is of death. This is true, and Kakuzu thinks this way at this time point. Then without any hesitation, all 3 hearts turned around and ran wildly in 3 directions. Kakuzu knew that with his strength, even if he tried his best, he would not be able to fight Naraku. If he continued to stay, he would have only one end, and that would be death point. There may be a glimmer of hope for survival if the 3 hearts escape separately. Haha, he is really an old guy who is afraid of death. Looking at Kakuzu, who fled in panic, Naraku showed a touch of disdain on his face point. If Kakuzu were to escape like this, wouldn't it be very embarrassing for him? Then he stretched out his hands, and then sharp wind attribute chakra surged out of his body. Almost instantly, 2 blue light balls appeared in his hands. The blue light ball rotated rapidly, and soon invisible wind blades appeared and surrounded the blue light ball. It was the spiral shuriken point. Then Naraku used force with his left and right hands and threw 2 shurikens forward point. Shishi. Kai. The shurikens tore through the air and made a sound of breaking through the air. The 2 shurikens rushed towards the 2 black monsters. Naraku's body focused on the black monster in the middle without any hesitation. Chakra and marrow power exploded at the same time, and a line of blood and tears fell from his left eye point. The next moment, the instant air launch, swish, almost instantly, Naraku's body appeared behind the black monster. Without any hesitation, the blow arc appeared on his hand again. Point. Crack. Crack. The dense blow arc formed a lightning spear and was held in Naraku's hand. It is the Chidori sharp spear Kai. Then Naraku raised his right arm to cover the ground and exerted force, directly thrusting the lightning spear into the body of the black monster in front of him. Point. At the same time, the 2 shurikens on the other side had also arrived behind the 2 black monsters. The next moment, the rapidly rotating shuriken directly tore the black monster's body into pieces. The spiral shuriken released by Naraku was even more powerful than Naruto's, and Kakuzu himself could not resist it at all. Just after 2 shurikens tore the black monster's body apart, Naraku's brows furrowed. Point. He looked at the woman with short blue hair who appeared in front of him, with a trace of hesitation in his eyes. The person standing in front of Naraku at this time was Zayanan, and the lightning spear that Naraku had just released was also wrapped in white confetti. Point. In fact, facing the restraints of Konan's ninjutsu, Naraku could easily break away, but he did not do so. Point. In a sense, Konan can be regarded as his sister. After all, Konan, Yahiko, and Nagato are all Jiraiya's disciples, although these disciples were somewhat unfilial, out of respect for Jiraiya, and because Naraku liked the 2 tragic characters Konan and Nagato in his previous life, Naraku did not attack her directly. Call out. At this moment, a shadow came out. It was Kakuzu's last heart who was being protected by Konan. The black shadow jumped out very quickly. He knew that this was his only chance. While Zayanan, he must leave here quickly when confronting Naraku. Ha. Naraku snorted coldly, and he wanted to say to a duo, "You think too much. No matter who comes today, they can't keep you alive. I'm sure the immortal duo will be here today." Nay. Luo secretly thought to himself. Then he raised his right hand and then threw the thunder spear in his hand with force. La. In a matter of seconds, the violent thunder chakra on the spear tore the white paper into pieces, and the thunder and lightning directly broke through the shackles of Konan's ninjutsu. Call out. Then the thunder spear tore through the air and rushed straight behind the black figure. But at this moment, the ground there shook slightly, and then a white figure appeared, blocking behind the black monster. White Zetsu clone. Naraku frowned slightly, but a sneer appeared on his face the next moment. A mere white Zetsu clone wants to block my attack. What a delusion. After Naraku finished speaking, a violent energy burst out from the lightning spear. Crack. Crack. Dense thunder and lightning condensed on the spear, and the next moment, Thick blue arcs of electricity were released from the spear, turning into streaks of thunder and lightning that swept forward. Boom. The moment Beiju's clone, which had not yet fully emerged from the ground, was struck by lightning, a large area of charred black appeared on its body, and its body, that was trying to get out of the ground, was also paralyzed. Buff. The next moment, a red blood splashed out, and the lightning spear shot out directly from the chest of Beiju's clone, and then landed directly on the black monster. Crack. Crack. In a matter of seconds, violent thunder attribute energy exploded instantly. Boom. After a loud noise, both Beiju and the black monster disappeared. The huge impact set off a burst of smoke, which directly covered that area. It was vaguely visible that there were several blue arcs flashing inside. What a pity. At this moment, Naraku suddenly opened his mouth and made a sound of regret. Then he turned his head and looked to his left and saw a familiar figure appearing there, wearing an orange mask and a large black robe. The person who came was none other than Obito Uchiha. Naraku carefully looked at Obito in front of him, especially his scarlet eyes. With the help of the perception ability of Kaguya's inner eye, Nejiang can sense the huge amount of chakra in Obito's body and the powerful pupil power gathered in his eyes. He knew that Obito had regrown his left eye, but at this time Naraku felt that Obito's changes might be more than that. In terms of chakra amount, Obito is almost comparable to him. This alone is incredible. You must know that at this time, his own chakra amount has surpassed Kushina's own chakra amount. Even compared to the weaker tailed beasts, there is only a slight gap. Chapter 250. Then let's play with you. Naraku's own chakra amount is not far different from that of the tailed beasts, and the chakra amount of Daishi, who is now similar to him in terms of chakra amount, is also massive. Naraku felt a little strange. He had the current level of chakra because he had the blood of the Uzumaki clan and the spiritual power of the 2 generations, but Obito only had the blood of the Uchiha clan. Could it be? Suddenly, Naraku seemed to have thought of something, and a strange color appeared in his eyes. His eyes fell on Obito's newly grown left eye. At this time, he realized one thing in his heart, that is, since Obito can now grow his left eye again, that means that he is no longer a pure bloodline of the Uchiha clan. Naraku can sense that there are a large number of first generation cells in Obito's body. Naraku is very clear about the fact that Obito transplanted the first generation cells. In today's ninja world, there are many people who have transplanted the first generation cells. Whether it is Danzo, Sarutobi Liming, or even the 3rd generation also has the first generation cells in his body. But in Naraku's view, that kind of transplantation method is very low level. Even if first generation cells are transplanted, they are still first generation cells, not their own cells. Therefore, the power they can exert from the first generation cells is very small. The most they can do is to enhance their own recovery ability and use some simple wood escape ninjutsu. But Obito is different at this time. Naraku can feel that his own cells have been completely integrated with the first generation cells. Perhaps the first generation cells in his body can be renamed Obito cells. Does he want to become the second Madara? Naraku secretly thought to himself that even he did not dare to look down upon Obito now. As expected, I still caught up. At this moment, a burst of laughter came, and it was Beiju who spoke. His pale body slowly emerged from the ground, and it was another Beiju clone. Boom. At this moment, a loud noise came, and the ground shook violently. In a matter of seconds, Naraku noticed something unusual, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. It's him, Jingren. At this time, you can see a thin-looking figure appearing in front of the Golden Susan. This person has short brown hair, and is wearing a black ninja uniform. He is the 4th generation who was severely injured by Kakashi before. Shadow Alyosha. It's just that at this time, the real Alyosha has already lost his source of meaning, and now his body is only being controlled by Beiju's clone. Naraku and Golden Susanoo share the same sense, so he also sensed it the moment Rasha appeared. You can see that the golden sand is all around the Golden Susanoo. These are all placer gold controlled by Rasa. The loud noise just now was the sound made by Alyosha's manipulation of placer gold to hit the Golden Susanoo. Wow. At this moment, a figure wrapped in the ball of placer gold emerged from the ground and landed at Alyosha's feet. Then the placer gold dispersed, revealing the figure inside, which was none other than Hidden. However, Hidden looked a little miserable at this time. His body was covered with hideous wounds one after another, especially on his abdomen. The wounds were so deep that they almost broke him at the waist, and his right arm looked empty. However, even after suffering such tragic injuries, Hidden was still not dead at this time, but had a painful and crazy look on his face. As expected of a person blessed by the evil god, his immortal body is indeed very powerful. Alyosha, who was controlled by Beiju's clone, spoke slowly, his voice sounding a little hoarse. After getting Hidden's body, he looked up at the tall golden Susan, then raised one hand, and a powerful chakra burst out from his body. Golden burial. A low cry came from his mouth, and the ground shook violently in an instant. Wow. Wow. The next moment, a large amount of the placer gold emerged from the ground, and flooded towards the golden Susan. The placer gold moved very fast, and Kakashi might be able to see it, if he was here. Today's Resha has been greatly enhanced in terms of strength and chakra volume compared to before. Boom boom boom. The overwhelming gold dust all hit the golden Susanna, and deafening sounds were heard. Naraku, who was not far away, frowned slightly. He looked up at the masked leader in front of him, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. In that case, let me have some fun with you. Naraku's eyes were scalded with a sigh in his heart, and the golden pattern of the six-pointed star shone with dazzling light in his eyes. The next moment, a line of blood and tears fell from his left eye, and then his figure disappeared in an instant. Swish. At the same time, Alyosha, who was constantly manipulating sand gold to attack Golden Susan, seemed to sense something, and immediately stopped the movements of his hands. At the same time, he kicked his feet on the ground, and retreated quickly. But no matter how fast he was, he couldn't compare with the time and space ninjutsu. A red-haired figure appeared next to him instantly. It was Naraku. Crack. Crack. The sound of thunder and lightning exploded from Naraku's body, and dense blue lightning was seen gathering on his arm. Naraku picked it up with his right hand and pointed it at Alyosha in front. Stab it. In an instant, a blue light flashed, and a thick blue lightning struck Alyosha's chest, directly piercing through his chest in just an instant. It's just a white Zetsu clone. But at this time, Naraku frowned. He looked at Alyosha, who had turned into a clone of Beiju, with a look of surprise on his face. He, who had always opened Kaguya's mind, didn't realize that this was just a clone, which made Naraku feel a little strange. In fact, what Naraku didn't know was that the current Alyosha was originally controlled by Beiju's clone, so the energy fluctuations on his body were very similar to those of Beiju's clone, almost exactly the same. Which was why he didn't distinguish them. However, this does not mean that Naraku cannot find Alyosha's true form. Naraku is confident that as long as Alyosha takes action again, he will definitely be able to find the opponent. Wow. After Naraku dealt with the white Zetsu clone, the placer gold around him also calmed down and slowly fell to the ground, but Hidden's figure disappeared. But at this moment, Naraku noticed that 3 figures suddenly appeared behind Obito. Among them was Rasa, and the remaining 2 were Kakuzu's last heart and Hidden, whose body was severely damaged. You guys go ahead and leave this place to me. At this moment, a hoarse voice sounded on the field, and it was the masked leader who spoke. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.